Good morning. I have 7:30. Welcome to the Mesa City Council study session for December 4th, 2025. Mayor Freeman and Councilmember Adams are unable to attend and excused from this meeting. All other council members are present. One is, there she is. Item number 1 is to review the agenda we have for Monday, December 8th council meeting. So let's go through that agenda. And do council have
Vice
any
Mayor,
questions?
Council,
Mark.
if I may. Items 4G and 4H, those issues are originally recommended on the agenda in front of you for denial. Those items have been resolved. We'll get those updated this afternoon. So when you see the agenda on later this afternoon, they will be recommended for approval.
Okay.
And then we do, as you're working your way through this, once you get there, 7A and 7B regarding a PD data platform. Pat Phelps is here to give a presentation on that one to further clarify that piece.
Okay, and 8E, I believe, 8E, 8F is a presentation on the study session as well.
Correct.
And I thought I had one more. 6B. Is that also a presentation?
The Mesa Connected.
Okay. So other than those items, does council have a question on anything else?
I have many questions.
Okay.
Yes, I have many questions. Do we just get started or?
Yes.
Great, okay. 4A, Royal Palms Golf Resort. So I just want to make sure I understand this. There's a lot of calls for Mesa PD at this location, 35 calls in 4 years. Only 5 have reports written. Is there some sort of baseline for how many calls we take at a location that is requesting to have a license for alcohol, and what does that look like? There's also a school that's 2,400 feet away. What's the normal distance that we want to have for schools from a location that's going to be serving beer, wine, liquor, anything? So I'm guessing there's answers to these questions.
Good morning, Vice Mayor, Council Member. I'm kind of filling in on the liquor license. I don't know the details of the distance between the school and the location, but I will find that out and get that to you this afternoon. With regards to the calls, PD, crime prevention, actually looks at the calls. They look at the nature of the calls. They look at the number, the location in relation to the applicant's location, and they make a recommendation to us whether or not they're concerned about the issue. And in this case, they weren't concerned about the type of calls and the number of calls related to this application.
Okay. So we're looking to them for guidance?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. That answers that question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I move to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. 4D, there's a Safeway at University and Val Vista. I think it's actually in Albertsons. It's also requesting a liquor license, which will allow for sampling, but they already have a liquor license that will remain in non-use. Is the new one taking place of the previous one? I'm just trying to understand this process. And in that case, can a store hold multiple licenses if they don't use multiple licenses, or does one die off? I mean, I'm just...
Vice Mayor, Council Member, yes, they can hold multiple licenses. They usually call it stacking, and it gives them additional privileges in the case of sampling. Sampling has to be a separate application and a separate approval from the Department of Liquor and the Liquor Board.
Got it, okay. That is all my questions on liquor licenses.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so then 5B, we have the $175,000, that's for new cameras and annual maintenance. I guess what I'm trying to understand is that for the cost of maintenance alone, because if so, it was my understanding that that's about $500 a camera. It seems significantly above the national average, which I did some research on, which is around $360 a camera for annual cost, but I didn't know if that was the cost of the camera plus the maintenance, which you're smiling, so maybe that's it. So can you walk me through that? What is the national average? Are we inflating on that? And also, who is negotiating our contracts? Like, do we have a negotiations team that comes in and says, hey, we got a request for pricing, but we think we can walk that down? Is this really the best? So, I mean, I have multiple questions in this.
Sure. Good morning, Vice Mayor, Council Member. This contract is for the purchase of new cameras to either put up cameras in new locations or replace cameras that have come to the end of their life. We do all the maintenance of the cameras ourselves with our staff. So that's not in this contract. It's to purchase new cameras.
Okay, so we're paying basically $500 a camera to have it installed, and then we're maintaining it within the city of Mesa, or is this contract covering our staff to maintain it?
Sure, Councilmember. The cost of a camera is it's anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 for our cameras.
Okay.
We have 175 in the city. We won't be, we replace them every 10 to 12 years. So not every camera is going to be touched in the life of this contract.
Okay.
But this is our best estimate right now to replace cameras that come to end of life, and then new locations that we're going to put up at intersections,
Okay.
so that we can monitor traffic from our transportation management center.
I love the CCTV, I just want to be clear. I'm just trying to
Sure.
understand the pricing guide behind
Sure.
it. Like, what is the average? How much should it cost?
Yes.
Are we in a good range?
Yeah, so I think we work with Ed's team to go out to bid with these contracts, and so it's advertised, and we try to get as many bidders as possible, and we take the lowest bidder.
Vice Mayor, council member, yes, this was a bid. There were 7 bidders that responded, and this is the lowest responsible bidder that we're recommending.
Do we negotiate, though? Do we go further and push the edge a little bit and say, okay, thanks for this particular bid, but can we go even a little bit lower on this? And how do we make that happen?
Vice Mayor, council member, generally we don't, because we're assuming that they are putting forward their best bid to try and compete against those others that are bidding. In the public purchasing world, generally that's not the approach that practitioners take, because they assume and rely on the competitiveness of the bid process to establish those prices.
Okay, thank you. That was all for that one. Thank you. Okay, so item 5C, we have I have a $2 million contract is what it looks like. I'm hoping someone can walk us through that. It didn't really clarify. Is that $2 million per contractor or just for the overall contract? What are the points? How are they determined? What do they mean for the grading scale? We just had a ton of work done on in D2 on the road, so I'm trying to understand, do we need to go back and have our manholes reworked, or what does that look like for us?
Sure. Good morning, Vice Mayor, council members. So 5C, so this contract it's actually for multiple vendors,
Right.
and it's on the sewer system. And so, for instance, ProPipe, that's probably a little more than half of the 2 million. And what they do is they clean and inspect our larger diameter interceptor pipes. So these would be your sewers that are 24 inches and larger. So these are going to be in your major arterials, carrying a lot of sewage from regional parts of the city. The smaller stuff, so 90% of the city we do ourselves with our own Vector trucks and our own fleet. But ProPipe, it's different equipment and it's a different process, so they do the bigger pipes. ProPipe in their contract, again, which is a little over $1 million, they also do spot repairs. So when we go in with cameras and they find defects in the sewer that are localized, say there's a lining that's collapsing, or there's a hole in the pipe, they can go in, they have the technology to do spot repairs. So that's part of the work. In Situ Form is another one of the contractors. They do sewer lining. So if we find defects in a sewer that requires not necessarily pipe replacement, because with sewers, we rarely replace the pipe, even sewers that are 80 years old, because it's a lot less expensive and more effective to do what's called trenchless technology. So you open up pits and you mobilize equipment and you run a liner through the sewer, and then you expand that liner and it just forms to the inside of the pipe wall. So it becomes part of the pipe. And then you take an 80-year-old pipe, and if you do lining, excuse me, you can extend that life, the sewer, another 50 years. So in Situ Form, that's also one of the vendors here. BNF, they'll do small, if you're not doing trenchless, if you have to actually excavate and say you have 20 foot of sewer where the roof is just collapsed and the sewer is compromised, then you get a contractor like B&F. So they're one of the contractors here, and they would go out and they would actually do construction. They would excavate and actually do that repair work out in the field.
Okay.
And then Duke's root control, that's pretty self-explanatory. They're going to go in. They have equipment that's going to grind out roots that are in a lot of the old vitrified clay pipe. Sometimes you get joints that separate. You get roots. Roots will find their way into the sewer. And so we have a specialized vendor that goes in and they have cutting equipment and they'll cut out the roots and they'll maintain the sewer in that way. So it's a plethora of different services and vendors that all bid. And then we pick the lowest responsible bidders. And then that's all under the umbrella of this $2 million. So it's not $2 million of budget. We already have the budget spread across our centers. The $2 million is just contract authority to engage these contractors.
Okay, so it's for the total number of all the contractors.
All the contractors,
Okay.
correct.
Can we chat really quick about all the work that was already done down Greenfield Road in District 2? Because it's so fresh and it's just been
Sure.
completed, and I know off of Lindsay and Pueblo, and then the work that's being done on Val Vista and Southern, which is also, I think, some piping work. Is that going to be taken out of the assumed cost of this maintenance? Because all of that is just literally brand new.
Sure, Vice Mayor, Councilmember Taylor. Well, Greenfield is the Central Mesa Reuse Pipeline, so that was a capital project. That's
That's
the
true.
Cary effluent.
Okay.
That's a 10 and a half
It's not
mile
sewer.
pipeline project, correct.
This is specific just to sewage.
This is, you're right, the sewage system, sanitary
Okay.
sewer.
Does that have any connection to all the manholes that were just replaced on 24th between Southern and Broadway, and then down Pueblo between I guess it'd be 24th and Lindsay as well?
There's some, let me look at the vendors.
I'm just curious to know, that's a connection to sewage, right?
It is, B&F contracting would do major manhole reconstruction. So if you have a manhole that is, you can't put it in lining or you can't do coating to
Okay.
rehabilitate it. You have to rebuild a manhole or replace it. We bring in someone like B&F under this contract, but this contract is generally not looking at manholes. We have other contracts that do manhole coating. Southwest Environmental is a consultant we use, so that's a different contract. Actually, we have 3 or 4 different contractors that have their own different technologies, and depending on the defects, we'll pick the contractor that would be the best fit.
Got it. And the city we are maintaining, so we're checking and then calling in the contractors to say like, hey, we need to have work done here, et cetera.
That's correct. So we have over 30,000 manholes.
Yeah.
So we have a
We had
program.
a lot of them
to-
replaced in my neighborhood.
Right, so we try to do, ideally, we would be doing 500 a year. We're working up to that. We have KPIs attached to this, so we have targets that we try to achieve. I think with some restructuring we've done with that group in particular, adding a superintendent, adding a field coordinator to better schedule work, I think we're working up to the number where we need to be, but we do hundreds per year of rehab.
That's very helpful. Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
I appreciate
welcome.
it. Okay, the next one is 5D.
I'll stay here.
I was just curious to know why we suddenly need approximately $350,000 for just over a month. Like, what happens after January 25th, 2026?
Sure, Vice Mayor, Councilmember Taylor, good question. So to be clear, so the $350,000, it's not new money, it's not budget. We have the budget we need for all this equipment. It's just increasing the spending authority that the warehouse has with all these different vendors to keep all of these parts in stock for us. Because they have the contract, and this gives them contract authority, so they keep fire hydrants and they keep valves, fittings, all that. For 2 reasons. We keep all of our trucks stocked with all this equipment, and we have a schedule of preventative maintenance. So we have a field coordinator, schedules out all this work. The crews arrive at 5:30 in the morning, and then they have their to-do list. So they go out and they have to have their truck stocked to do this work. But then there's also the area of emergencies. So if we get water main breaks or frequently these days, we've got a lot of contractors that work in the private side that hit our pipes or hit our fire hydrants. And sometimes we'll have 2, 3 emergencies going on at any given time. we can't have a situation where we go to the warehouse to grab a fire hydrant to fix an emergency in the field and there's no equipment there. So it's just to make sure that that they have the contract authority to keep everything in stock that we might need, either in an emergency or planned.
And we're extending that authority just for over a month. Is this just so that they can go buy whatever they need to keep the warehouse stocked? It's the timeline that's got me a
Yes.
little hung up.
Vice Mayor, Councilmember, water did have some issues in the September-October timeline that weren't really planned for. They were emergency responses. So they did eat up a little bit of our dollar amount that was available unexpectedly. And we do need the increase so that we can continue to order these supplies to, as Chris said, make sure they're in stock for them. But these are items that with the market right now, they have long lead times. So we could wait until February when we have a new contract available, but that runs the risk of then us not having items in stock because of those lead times. So we'd like to get the dollar limit increase in now. As Chris said, it's not a budget issue. It's already in the department's budget. It's just contract capacity. And we do have a new contract that's being solicited that the council will see, I believe it's the second half of January for approval. So it's just to bridge that interim so that we don't run out of stock.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. Let me make sure I got everything on that one. So did you say we'll be seeing the new contract in probably the second half of January?
Probably the second half of January, yes.
Okay, that explains that date then. Perfect, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, 6A, Scott, I know this is in your district. This was the Amazon Web Services development. I was just curious to know, I kind of looked at the presentation, I looked at the plot map, but there was a report that had the attorney's office, and it kind of had this like, this was our public comment, and all it stated was that there were no phone calls. And I was just curious to know, do we record public comment on this? Do we have good feedback for the council to review so we understand what the neighboring residents that are maybe a few miles away or even within a closer perimeter think about this?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor, Councilmember Taylor. So all of zoning applications, any public hearing application goes through a citizen participation process. And there are notifications that go out to surrounding property owners, usually within 1,000 feet of the site. The applicant tracks any comments that they get, emails, phone calls, what the concern was, and then kind of what they did to address it, if there was anything that they were able to do to address it. The range of feedback that we get kind of varies by location. For this specific property, given it's a large property in an industrial area, I don't think we got any feedback on that. When it gets closer into more residential areas, we tend to get more feedback.
Okay, that's probably why there wasn't a whole lot
Right.
in there. Let me see if there's anything else.
May I tag in on a question
Yeah.
since Evan is here?
Please.
Okay. Why are they building a substation instead of relying on SRP just providing the electric?
Thank you, Vice Mayor, Councilmember Duff. There are two components to this. So SRP has a substation and they bring the power, and it's actually directly adjacent to the applicant's substation. The applicant then takes that power, I guess I'll use the word manipulate it for their needs, and then it feeds the actual building. So it's not uncommon to have two substations, one by SRP and then one more specific to the end user's needs.
Is it to regulate the amount of energy they need, to safeguard, to make sure they have an access to a certain load of energy? I know I'm getting a little
Yeah.
technical, but I'm just trying to understand. This is the first time I'm aware that it's happened, or maybe it's just because it's come through council and wasn't,
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I will give you my planner answer as a non-electrical engineer. I think what they're trying to do is step down the voltage, because when it comes in at SRP, it's a really high voltage. They have to then bring that down to a usable voltage for their operations. So SRP brings in main lines to a substation, and then they have to manipulate that power to make it usable for their needs.
So are other data centers doing this and I'm just not aware?
Yes, so
Okay.
we've done a few of these recently where major utilities fall under a council use permit in the LI zoning district. There are a few, I think, that maybe just have SRP substations, and SRP is exempt from zoning, so we don't review those. But when there's an SRP substation and a private substation, that's the request before you today, is that council use permit specifically for the private substation.
And then as far as infrastructure, is it like duplicated in order to have that regulation?
So there are what would, I think, appear to my eyes at least, they would appear to be similar on the site. So it would look like two substations. One is SRP and exempt from zoning. The other one is private and it falls under the major utilities category and requires a council use permit.
Okay, thank you.
Mary, you and I had this conversation yesterday. I was going over it with you. Do you have anything else to add on that?
Vice Mayor, Council, the only thing I think that we would add is that they are required to screen it per the Mesa zoning ordinance. So there are, regulations in terms of what it looks like when it goes through that site plan process. But today, really what's in front of the council is about the use itself.
And this is already under construction. It's gone vertical. The SRP station, I believe, is there? Or is it under construction?
Vice Mayor, the project is under construction. The AWS warehouse is up. I'm not sure on the timing of the substation, but the data center building itself has started construction.
This is one that had zoning previous to our zoning update, the text amendment. So this is just their power system. And Mary's going to be working on the screening and making sure it looks as good as can possibly be. But it is in the industrial area. It's not up against homes.
Yeah, okay.
That's key.
Is there something similar to that substation over, I think it's by Nella's Auction? There's maybe an Amazon warehouse or web services, and it looks like it has basically its own grid. If you're up on the 24 and you're
Yes.
looking out at it, is that kind of similar to
Thank you, Vice Mayor, Councilmember Taylor. Yes, that's actually an SRP substation right off of the 24 on what would that be, the west side of Ellsworth,
Okay.
north of Ray. I don't think this one is going to be quite to that extent because that SRP substation serves multiple properties in the surrounding area. As far as the look, it would probably be similar, but at a smaller scale.
It'd probably be similar to the one at Meta,
Correct.
which you can,
yeah, I just drove by.
yeah, you can see it, unfortunately.
Okay, I saw a lot of landscaping, so that was nice.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. That was very helpful. I don't have any other questions. Let's see. 7A and B. Real-time decisions and operations management systems. I was just reading
We
over.
have a full staff presentation
Oh,
on that.
that's
So
right. Never
Do
mind.
you have
Yep.
another one?
Yes, I sure do.
We're gonna call you up yeah, thank you.
Sorry. 8B, were there any public comments around this? Did we have them recorded?
So Fujifilms
Yeah,
is.
that's a huge,
It's a huge facility. It's been there for decades, also south of 24 in the industrial area, so
I know people who
I
live in
know you
Santan
heard from me.
Valley, yeah. And they're like, why is Fujifilm getting bigger? Why are they expanding? And I'm like, oh, boy, I don't really have an answer for you on that. They need to do more business, but
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor, Councilmember Taylor. So this went through the same citizen participation process that I described earlier. And again, kind of because of the location of this specific property, we didn't get a lot of feedback from residents because they were outside of that mailing radius. As far as why they're looking to expand, their operations are growing, which is good. And they also picked up a former ADOT parcel that's zoned agricultural, which is in the northwest corner of that site. So they're rezoning that to heavy industrial and kind of bringing it into their existing planned area development overlay. So they are expanding operations and they are bringing new property into their planned area development.
do you know if they're going to make it more aesthetically pleasing from the road?
Good question. So they're going through design review for the new structures that are proposed. They are tall structures and they're specific equipment related to their operation. So they're making them as aesthetically pleasing as they can. There are some safety concerns because they need to have visibility in there because it's chemicals. But yes, they have worked extensively with staff on the design of those buildings to get them as aesthetically pleasing as we can.
So we're approving the use of that new ADOT land for them to expand onto in this?
That's part of it, yeah. So we're rezoning that parcel to heavy industrial to be consistent with the rest of their development. There's also a site plan modification included with this that shows the location of the new buildings that are expanding. And they're all on the west side of that Fuji,
Yeah.
the Fuji site.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I've actually been working on this for a better part of a year. I'll add a little bit more context to it. The Fuji representatives had come out to the site and work with us to look at various view angles, I think would be a good way, or view sheds, particularly from the 24, and what that was going to look like. We talked about one of their towers that shouldn't be too onerous, but it'll be a little tall, about maybe doing some design in front of that. The difficulty is OSHA requires a clear view for the workers on there to work there. The other thing that they're working on, this is going to be 80 new jobs added to it, which is a great addition. These are well-paid jobs as well. They are part of the Pirate Project, which is the rail spur that will come through eventually. Hopefully we get that moving. That'll take dozens and dozens of trucks per day off the road. So Fuji has been a key component of that project as well. So between, they are working on design, they're adding jobs. It's appropriately zoned, and it's south of the 24. There's some stuff south of on that road that isn't exactly pretty, but has been there for a very, very long
Right, I know
time.
that
Fuji's been there for, anybody know?
Over
A couple decades, maybe?
yeah.
Yeah, it's been there a very long time, so.
Because that was kind of the boonies when, at one point before.
It was
that was
jackrabbits and tumbleweeds
Right,
back in the day when they grew, so, but we're very attent, and then the state improvements to the 24 should help kind of block some of that view from what's south.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you. I'm almost done, kind of. So 8C, there's a rezoning, multiple residences. I wasn't clear, I'm sorry. Are these apartments, are these townhomes? What are we looking to?
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Taylor, this is a multiple residence development, so it would be apartments, 15 units, multiple residents.
And then, let me see. Lastly, are we doing a presentation on 9A? I'm sorry. I don't think we are.
No, what is this, proposed amendments? Middle housing, this is related, 9A, middle housing, Mary,
Yeah.
is related to the state changes in
Can
our
you-
zoning code?
We all had individual presentations.
That's correct. We, Vice Mayor, Council, we did come to each of the council members. I know we didn't make it
Yeah,
to
I mean,
Councilmember Taylor because she.
Maybe you can walk me through it so I understand.
We could. We can either do a presentation or Rachel can give you an overall summary of middle housing, however council wants to do that.
Well, I think you need to get with the council member and give her the full presentation,
We can do that.
because, yeah, she needs to, I think we had it a while ago and what happened, so she needs to get brought up to
Right,
speed.
so how would that work with us approving or just, can we pull it and wait so I can go through a presentation and understand it, or?
So Mayor and Council, this ordinance is required by state statute to be approved by this
yes.
year. So I would highly recommend voting on this
I know
on
what you're
Monday
talking
night.
about now. Never mind, I got it.
Okay.
I know what the ramifications are if we don't approve it. Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, and then the forensics, I'm sorry, I don't know if I put it on my notes. Yes, Kim. Kim and I just talked, and I was hoping maybe you could explain this, just so that the public also can hear why Mesa controls our crime lab in sharing it with other municipalities, how they're gonna basically reimburse us for work done, and why this works out well. Sure.
Sorry, can Vice Mayor, Council, just so everybody's aware, this is related to item 5A on the
Yes.
agenda.
Sorry.
Okay, good morning, Vice Mayor, council members, Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you.
Our forensics laboratory provides work for 4 agencies, City of Mesa, of course, the City of Tempe, the town of Gilbert, and the town of Queen Creek. We began offering these services in 2012 and became a regional lab at that point. The way that our laboratory operates is these agencies are invoiced at the beginning of the year based on the workload that's anticipated for that year. The intergovernmental agreements that have been written are based on the workload that is expected. Those funds are used to actually hire and pay the salary as well as the benefits for forensic scientists, administrative staff, and the capacity to do the work. So the reagents and the consumables are included in that. So at the beginning of the year, we start with those funds. We will monitor throughout the year to ensure that we don't see increases or any workload beyond the capacity. If we do, we will go back to those agencies and invoice differently or increase. And so it's a cost neutral to the city. There are, we actually started seeing quite a bit of benefits once we started becoming a regional lab. One thing with crime laboratories nationwide is that they're incredibly fragile, and that's because of how long it takes to hire and train experts to do this work. And so a smaller agency will obviously staff based on their workload, which might mean in some of these disciplines you only have 1 to 2 people. So the loss of one person actually can shut down laboratories and some of the work they do. That was true for Mesa as well. And so once we started being a regional lab, we actually saw quite a bit of stability added to our laboratory, which has allowed us to handle Mesa's work very efficiently. We've seen stability in our turnaround times, our ability to be timely with our work, and that has been true for those other agencies as well.
So for everyone who's listening, in a sense, because we've kind of, grouped all of these municipalities together, we have a more stable lab. We have more employees at that lab who can do more work in a timely way. We can report from one central station, essentially, hey, here's what we've done for Mesa, here's what's been done for Tempe, here's what's been done for Gilbert. So overall, it's a very positive experience, not just for Mesa alone, but for other smaller municipalities that otherwise may have crime labs that don't even remain stable and could close down.
Yes, absolutely. And we do believe that, we understand that crime crosses borders. And so by being able to provide this timely service to the agencies that neighbor us, we believe that we actually are impacting the crime in Mesa as well.
That's great. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Award-winning lab.
Oh, that's
as I
correct.
recall.
Okay.
Award-winning.
That's good. Thank you.
Councilmember Duff?
Yes, I'd like to comment on item 9B. First of all, I realize we're down to only considering 1,000 feet. I do want to thank the mayor and Councilmember Goforth for attempting to have a full council discussion on this, on the best systems. In fact, GI zoning is in District 3. It affects several districts, not just one, and so I think it takes all of us to contribute to this. But regardless, I'm sorry I missed. I regret that I didn't stay up, even though I was on a different time zone internationally, because I do have a lot to say, and I will share it, because I will be voting against this. Who proposed 1,000 feet? How did we ever get to 1,000? We started with 400 for the staff. The planning and zoning recommended 400. Somehow 1,000 feet kept on creeping in. I have no idea how it got there.
So Vice Mayor, Council, when staff initially worked with the fire department building official, we looked at the 400 feet to somewhat mirror what we had done with data centers in terms of that separation requirement. As we were receiving feedback from stakeholders, from some of the leadership, that discussion moved to a recommendation for 1,000 feet. So staff changed our recommendation from that 400 to that 1,000 based on some of the feedback we were receiving.
Who are the stakeholders?
So some of the people that we heard at public meetings, some of the residents,
the professionals, and
the professionals in the industry are definitely looking at a smaller setback based on the NFPA, but that separation from that residential, those residential areas and districts was really coming from some of the residents that were at meetings, some of the feedback that we were receiving as we were going through this process. So when we recommended that 1,000, then you're right, Planning and Zoning Board, because we had started with the 400, said they recommended to go back to that original 400. So staff stayed with our original 1,000-foot recommendation, and then offered those two options to the council for council's consideration.
And APA, American Planning Association, also recommends a lower, at the 100 feet or whatever.
They do, and I don't remember specifically what the feet is that the APA is recommending. What I would say is there is no benchmark on that separation. Those numbers range from 100 feet up to a mile. And so staff was trying to kind of find that fine balance in our recommendation because there is no answer in terms of what most people are doing in terms of best practices.
Yeah, and I appreciate your comments, and I did listen to the study session at the council meeting that I missed. So I did as much research as I can, and I looked at peer cities. Los Angeles is 1 to 300 feet, San Francisco 2 to 500, Houston 3 to 500, Miami 3 to 500, Phoenix 2 to 300, Las Vegas 3 to 500, Charlotte, North Carolina 2 to 300, Atlanta, Georgia 3 to 500 feet, New York City 2 to 500 feet. I can't find any cities that required a mile separation. It can exist, it just wasn't available in databases. And the only city or area that I can find that prohibits them altogether was in Hawaii, and Kauai in particular, because of the fire risk, and we know what things happen in Hawaii with the fire risk. So I think it's really putting us off of the standard of our peer cities. I'm getting out of line of all my notes, but okay, I will go back to that. But it's really pitting us out of the spheres, is making us less competitive. It is affecting our energy costs and our economic development. So I understand 1,000 feet, we want to be careful to protect residential, but 1,000 feet is equivalent to 3 football fields. Can you imagine the distance of 3 football fields? That's, I think, is pretty excessive. And that is wasted land. It's going to just sit there. It has no contributing factor to our city or to our energy demands. The developer next to the current BESS system that's in process did write a letter to council. It's a multifamily project, and he approved 400 feet, very satisfactory. This is his investment, his career. 400 feet was adequate to protect that investment. I have concerns that we have substations. Well, this gets into zoning. I think we're past that anyway. But substations are all over LI zoning and residential zoning. And these BESS systems need to be close to substations in order to operate. So we're really limiting in the GI and HI. I think data centers have battery storage. There is nothing I can find that 1,000-foot separation is supported by a study, an example, an incident, any profession at all that 1,000 feet is supported. It's basically, I guess, just on the recommendation of residents and of our city. SRP wrote a letter to us mentioning it's going to eliminate 600 megawatts of clean energy that we're expecting. And that is, they said, limit our economic growth and grid reliability in this area. 400-foot setback achieves the goal. 1,000-foot setback does not. It will set Mesa apart as an outlier and put reliability and growth at risk. The energy developers have worked closely with Mesa staff for years to identify these project locations as part of the city's long-term energy planning. This is not something they just came up with. This has been in the work for years. SRP factored these projects into Mesa's energy needs 3 to 4 years ago. And now their energy projection, now they're planning 5 to 7 years, and I think that's the waiting time for energy on some of the economic development projects. Energy is not readily available. This is the cheapest, fastest energy available for economic development. If you're looking at other forms of energy, where you can have nuclear, there's decades before you can get anything established. Gas, a very long time. You have to have gas lines from wherever. This is energy that is in excess. It goes to waste during overnight, and this is a way to take it and store it and use it. The energy is already there, is being wasted. It's the number one way to have the cheapest and most reliable form of energy that we desperately need. It compromises grid reliability during peak summer demand in high-growth areas, undermines Mesa's economic development goals, as a reliable power is essential for attracting businesses. It increased costs for residents and businesses by forcing reliance on less efficient backup generation. We rely on the NFPA guidelines for our fire code and our building code, but somehow it's not sufficient for best systems. Best systems in a smaller scale are in our cars or in our homes. We can't escape it. It's there. This was quoted in the public comment, and I didn't have time to research the article, but it says there's a piece in Political the other week that found states with more renewables, like battery storage, have lower power costs than those without. New solutions will help provide power and make energy affordable again. I did as much research as I can among peer groups that I have for electeds. I put a call out to Best Systems and what their separation requirements were. I went to the National League of Cities conference. I asked everybody I could and everything. I could find no one that was requiring these excessive 1,000 feet. Everything was 100 or the 200 to 500 range. And then, I did further research and named all the cities that are pure cities and what their ranges are. So we have staff, we have the planning and zoning, we have the American Planning Association, we have industry professionals, including fire and MPFA, and standards across US among pure cities. And somehow, we think 1,000 feet is the magic number. Nothing has supported 1,000 feet. I think it's excessive. I don't support 1,000 feet. I will be voting no on this. And to residents who don't support infrastructure so we can provide the lowest energy costs, the lowest water costs, because you don't want to pay for infrastructure, you're turning your back on keeping utilities affordable. Thank you.
Jim, just to clarify, if the item fails on Monday, BESS is not allowed in the city of Mesa, is that correct?
Vice Mayor and Council, that's correct. Right now, under the zoning interpretation, they're not a permitted use, and so we're bringing forth, a change to allow them to be permitted under certain circumstances. So we'd probably come back to you in January or February with other options and to ultimately, adopt something.
Okay, and if 1,000 feet is approved, that doesn't stop us from taking in new evidence and amending the ordinance in a text update?
Correct. Vice Mayor and Council, you could approve the 1,000 feet and we could come back later and reduce that or increase it and then also make other changes. Obviously, you see frequent changes to the zoning code.
Okay. Mr. Heredia?
I think I also missed the meeting, but I remember somebody asked about in between 400 and 1,000. Was there a conversation with the applicant and maybe staff about kind of looking at that as an option? It's just curious. I don't know if I missed that conversation on Monday's meeting, but.
So Councilmember, or Vice Mayor, Councilmember Heredia, Council, yes, we did meet with one of the applicants who the 1,000 feet would be more restrictive for them in terms of what they wanted to do. After meeting with them, they did not ask for anything like as an interim, as a third option, which is why we came forth with the two options.
Mary, can we get a map that shows where our existing HI, where these are going to be allowed, and our existing residential zoning districts are, at least, for instance, in the southeast part of the city, District 6, where it's not as developed yet. I'd like to visually see, what are we really talking about? How many zoning districts are actually affected?
Sure.
At this time?
Sure, Vice Mayor and Councilmember Goforth, yes, we can prepare that map. It's important to note that there's also GI, as Councilmember Duff had mentioned, over on the west side of the city, so it doesn't just sit in the southeast part of the city, but we can create a map and we can get that out to everyone.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I would like to mention there is a pending multifamily project that will, I don't know what decisions will be made. I guess it'll be on the BESS system, that they will not be able to build out capacity because there is a multifamily project. There is a BESS system in process, and they will have to pull back on that capacity. SRP has no way to replace that energy in order to prepare. They know there's multifamily next door. So they'll, and the multifamily, again, I said 400 feet was fine, but it will affect that system immediately.
And that's the only one that I know of that.
So, Vice Mayor, council members, that's correct. There's one that's currently being built on Signal Butte that you're all aware of. There are also two that we have pre-submittals for. The one that Councilmember Duff is referring to, there is a residentially zoned parcel within about 450 feet of that. So the 1,000 feet would impact where they would have to place that first battery on that site, which would impact the capacity of it. With the second site, which is kind of at the corner of Elliott and Signal Butte, adjacent to the existing one on Signal Butte, that 1,000 foot, from the residential district, they have that distance. So it doesn't impact that one. It's the one that has the residential district within about 450 feet. It would impact them.
So, any other questions on this?
I just wanted to get one, based on what Mary said, so am I understanding that this is in kind of along Jen Duff's concerns? Am I understanding that the big concern that you have, Jen, right now is the multifamily project with that BESS system? They can't coincide together currently. And what that means is if the 1,000 feet does win currently, although the multifamily can be built, we're concerned that SRP basically has nowhere else to put that one BESS system.
The BESS system has to be downsized.
Thank you.
Okay. So first of all, Mary and I are continuing to work on this issue, much to her chagrin. She has some meetings, I think, today, if we get out of this meeting, to talk to some of the best industries. I'll try to keep this short, because the comments I made the other day are still relevant. I spent 20 years in hazardous materials. I've been a tox medic. I know the byproducts of combustion when these things burn. I've written an article on them. I've fought battery fires. I've been part of the NFPA process. It's sausage making. I mentioned the other day there was a baker's dozen worth of industry folks with their focus on building more of these systems. That was part of the 855 plan. Firefighters right now, little sidetrack here, but firefighters right now are trying to get PFAS out of their turnout gear. The PFAS is a forever chemical. It causes cancer. They're trying to do that through the NFPA process, but they are being blocked repeatedly by the industries that are also on that board. It is, like I said, it's sausage making. It's not just expertise. It's not expert math. There is no quantitative number on how far away from residential or other uses this must be, because there hasn't been large-scale testing. There's been component testing, but a large-scale and fire testing has not been done. The apartments that are there is a grave concern because they are going to be so close. They're also mixed in with industrial. It's just a bad zoning scrambled egg that has developed in that particular incident. As far as setbacks, Santa Cruz County, 1,000 feet. Kiowa County, a quarter of a mile. Alameda County, Virginia, 5,000 feet. New York State proposed a bill for BESS over 5 megawatts to be at least 1,000 feet from home. California proposed 3,200 feet from homes. Rancho Cucamonga, Bryan, Texas. Bans, Carmel, New York, Yorktown, New York, Monterey, California, Solano County, Marion County, Jefferson County, Oyster Bay. I have a list. So I have said it before, I think 1,000 feet is reasonable for safety. It allows the best systems to come in here because we do need the power. This is just a question of what is the distance that we want to have, and those distances can be adjusted based on what we learn in the future. As for unproductive land, it's only unproductive if it's not commercially developed, because this is a residential setback. And if I need to change something in this ordinance, I'm more willing to do that. What's the setback to commercial?
Vice Mayor, if I could just be clear, it's a separation requirement, it's not a setback. So that separation is from the first battery to that residential property, the first battery to, the perimeter wall to that residential property.
Residential use is what I'm.
Yes,
Getting
but it's
to.
not, but that land, that 1,000 feet in between is not a setback on the site, it's a separation distance. So just for clarification on that.
You know, you tried to clarify it at the meeting and it didn't really work.
No, it didn't.
We need the map. Anyway, that's just a comment. This is the item that at the moment is coming forward. And again, we can make changes to it in the future. If this fails on Monday, BESS is not allowed in the city. And one more thing, because I've had this conversation with their attorneys and with SRP. They've been planning this for Mesa for the last 3 years, they say, 3 to 4 years. They never came to me. If you're going to plan something for our community, wouldn't it be a good idea to involve the council member who's most impacted by this? Not one call.
I don't think.
And as for, you call me a liar? As for the, okay, thank you. I shouldn't have jumped at you. I apologize. That was inappropriate. To the point, there was a request for a map of the zoning, and there's an important component of this. It needs to be within a certain distance. The best systems have to be within a certain distance of the transformer station in order to be useful. If it's beyond that distance, I think it's a mile, but don't take me to the bank on that. Otherwise, it has to go to the line siting committee at the state with the ACC. When we get that, where is the industrial zoning? Where are their stations? Because that's where really the impact will be.
Vice Mayor, Council, we'll have to work with Energy Resources because not every substation is the same in terms of its ability to be able to pull the energy in and then put it into a BESS. So that may take a little bit more analysis, but we'll do the best we can with that. I can get a map of the substations, but it may not be the specific information that you're looking for because it's only certain substations that this would work with.
Okay, so it's even more complicated. How long do you think it'd take to pull that together?
Sorry, Vice Mayor, we'll get with Scott and his team and see what we can do.
Okay. All right, let me know, would you? Yeah, I think we have a call after that.
I guess my comment is, I think the 1,000 feet, I think the ordinance is not up for any pushback. I think this is a single issue with a single site. From my understanding, no? No.
I mean, presently. But, I mean, it still has implications, potentially, depending on what we see in the map for other locations.
Exactly. That's what I don't know. I mean, I think, I don't know where there's any sort of crossover with, I mean, I can't imagine there's much residential zoned land right now next to heavily HI. Have we done that? I hope not.
So Vice Mayor, Council, in District 3, there is significant amount of GI land that
Okay.
is surrounded by residential uses. It's also important to remember that because this requires a PAD, an applicant could come in and ask for a rezoning from an LI to a GI or an HI to be able to do one of these near a substation that might today be in an LI area, if they can get that separation requirement. So just because it's the land you see today that's HI and GI, remember they can, depending on if it's needed, ask for that rezoning to that heavier industrial use based on a case-by-case basis for council to consider.
And we would evaluate that
For
at the
council
time.
to consider, that's
Exactly.
correct.
Okay. Are there substations in those areas in District 3?
That's what we need to model.
I hate to have this huge discussion that is pointless, you know?
And I think we need to let Mary and her team put together that map, because again,
Yes.
just because there's a substation doesn't mean it has the capacity, the capability
Right.
to do that. So this would be some more information. So is there any other pressing questions on this?
Vice Mayor and Council, if I could just add, I'd like to add something else, and I know we've probably already talked about it too much, is that the ordinance does something else that's kind of unique. It makes, there's 2 sites right now that are looking to build, and this ordinance allows them to come in as legal nonconforming. And so that's sort of the unique aspect of this ordinance. And so that'll only really apply to sort of pending applications. And so it won't apply going forward, but the setback will be required of those 2 sites to be able to be eligible for the legal nonconforming. Why this is relevant is because there's a second aspect that you should always remember is that, so in any future site, it's going to require rezoning. And as part of that rezoning, you can always require more setback. And so if you end up deciding to alter the 1,000 feet, that would affect those procedurally legal non-conforming sites, those 2 sites. But in the future, let's say that if you ended up going with 400 feet, it would affect those 2 sites. Other sites in the future, they would also be eligible with a 400-foot setback, but council could always require more as part of the rezoning. We're making this so the future, other than those 2 sites, future cases will always require rezoning, and so the setback could be altered, could be increased over the minimum. We're really setting the floor, right? We're not setting the ceiling. So just a thought to keep as this continues to evolve, and I know we'll end up talking about it Monday night too.
You are a thief of joy that we are going to talk about this on Monday. I'm trying not to look at my council member over.
I think
Sir.
that was my question to Jim. I think I hope we don't think these BESS systems are not something that we need for the future of our power grid, right? I think there's some consensus that there is need for additional options for these types of systems. So I hope that's, at least that's what I've gotten as far as what Jim said. I think that's an important aspect of how we move forward. It's so site-specific, these items, right? Because they do need some sort of power source. And so I don't know if there's other options that we haven't added to this, these pieces that it still has to come to council for a vote, and setting up that conversation with, if it's this council or future councils, right? Setting those processes is important, but understanding that we do need options that we need to think about now for the future of setting our power grid for success, right? So I think that's an important aspect to note as far as how we set these systems up for future conversations that we're gonna have at the council level, because these sites are so site-specific, that's where we can keep on negotiating, I think, so. But
I, thank you for that comment, because I mean, look, my passion for this comes from my background. The safety and welfare of my residents is top priority, and that's what I've done. I also have concerns about the grid. I also have concerns about its impact on economic development. We are struggling on a couple of projects to find them the power for advanced manufacturing in my district in order to bring the jobs. So I really do. I see both sides. And I know Councilmember Duff and I both own an EV. I park a battery in my garage every day. But I know that risk. I take that risk myself. This is a little different. So I continue to struggle with this. I was up at 2 in the morning thinking about this. Mary and I had a conversation yesterday. She has another meeting on this. We continue to work on it. So okay. Yes?
If we set the floor at 1,000 feet through this vote, can we change the floor later?
Vice Mayor and Council, yes, but realize that would require the process, right? So we'd go back through P&Z, we'd go back to the public, we go back through P&Z, and we come back and we introduce an ordinance and we change. So yes, so we'd go through the whole process.
So Linda Brady, give me a call. Linda Brady works for SRP, for those who don't know. Do you have anything else?
So if we went back through process, how much delay would it require for this system that is in the system, in the planning system?
Vice Mayor and Council, so if we went, so that's the sort of, the unique aspect of this ordinance, right, is that it allows 2 sites to become legal non-conforming. If this passes, well, then one of the sites might not be able to be eligible.
Right.
And so it's not going to be legal non-conforming. And so it's not as simple as sort of changing the number back down, to whatever, 400 or 500 feet. I really have to look on what we need to do to make that legal non-conforming, or they just have to come through the whole process. They have to rezone their property, get the overlay, and get all the approvals necessary.
But the other site, to that point, if I may, is that would become a legal non-conforming.
Yes, I believe so.
That one. So they could proceed with that one.
Right.
And while we tangle with the third site.
That's my understanding. That's my understanding,
so that's kind of the discussion.
Which delays
So
the power that they promised for economic development.
But the second site would provide them at least with some of that power. They already have the one. The second one could move forward, and then we tackle the third one. If we don't adopt this, then the second, I don't want to say second one. There's one that exists already that's legal non-conforming we voted on. So the next phase of that, which would meet the requirements of this, could proceed, and they could ramp that one up to get the power. It's the third one that we have to wrestle over. Does that make sense? Yes. Sort of, because Mary's making a face.
I'll let Jim start.
So Vice Mayor and Council, I mean, the other option is to, instead of sort of going back and, creating the wheel again, is to continue to January and February, and that does delay the second site, but it allows us to sort of create one solution one time, and it sort of solves for the third site, the legal non-conforming issue, that it'll still be eligible for that potential.
Possibly, but if we continue to have the argument into the summer, because we can't, then the risk is they can't get the second site moving. So this is, Linda, you need to call me. So that's what I'll say. Why do you make us start with an attorney?
I would always defer to Jim.
Jim is an excellent source. Do you have anything to add, Mary? Jim is an excellent source. Do you have anything to add, ma'am?
I just want to, just a clarification, it's a legally conforming use, not a legal non-conforming use. So they're a little bit different. They're legally conforming now.
Mary, for the sake of everyone listening outside of us, what's the difference between a legally conforming, or Jim, and a legally non-conforming use?
Yeah.
And Rachel knows this part of the code better than any of us. So I think we're all going to punt to Rachel because she knows it, because we created some different categories, and it deals with the ability to expand or not expand in the future. But Rachel knows this part of the code better than anybody.
Okay. Morning, Vice Mayor, council members. So there's really kind of three categories. So you have a conforming use where it's meeting all the requirements of the code. And then you have a legal non-conforming use that at the time that it was established, it met the requirements of the code, but over time the code changes, so then it becomes non-conforming. And then we recently adopted this kind of third option, which is a procedurally legal conforming use, where if there was a zoning administrator interpretation that made a use that met all the standards at the time, that it would be considered conforming. So it came into the city, we processed it, approved it, it met the standards at the time, but later there was a zoning administrator interpretation on the item that made it non-conforming. We made this new category that said in those circumstances, this would be considered legally conforming because of financing reasons, et cetera.
So we're taking something that was legally conforming, it moved to non-conforming, but somebody interpreted it differently and it moved back to legally conforming by procedure?
By this new ordinance, this new category, yes.
Full circle. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I don't have any, I'm just processing that one, yeah.
I'm surprised you think anybody's watching anymore.
I have people texting me telling me they're watching right now.
All right. We'll beat this horse some more on Monday, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll be fielding some more calls. Item 6B, you have a presentation. This will be on the Mesa Connected plan. Why do I have 6A? Am I? Okay. What do you want to proceed with next? You want Mesa Connected?
We're still on the current agenda. We'd like to, PD would like to clarify, just make sure there's no confusion on 7A.
Oh, that's right, you
7B.
did ask about that, 7A and 7B. So, PD?
Good morning, Vice Mayor, Council. I'm Pat Phelps, Deputy Director in the Police Department. With me is Wayne Kwong, who is our Police IT Division Manager. We want to clarify what's on the agenda here. There are two related items, items 7A and 7B. And this is for us to implement a data sharing solution, and specifically the one where we'd like to move forward is Peregrine. We are constantly looking for ways to more effectively and efficiently do the things we are already doing, and these are things we're already doing. So I want to talk a little bit about what this product is first, and we kind of call it Google for Cops. So this is an ability to search data we already have. So this is no new data. This is data that already exists in our records management system or our CAD system, but provides an interface to our officers, detectives, that allows them to, instead of having to go by field search, they could say red car and show instances of red car in a Google type search. The other thing it does is it allows crime analysts the same type of capability to go through, and instead of looking at multiple records, they can see them all together in a single return search. The other capability this has is an enhanced ability to then map that data. We can automate processes that a crime analyst would do manually today, especially things that they would do on a, say, a daily, weekly, monthly basis. I need to produce a weekly burglary map of a district. We can automate that process now, and it takes that off of their plate and allows them to do other types of analysis. There's a mobile interface as well on an iPhone, and right now there's about 250 public safety agencies using this product. And this is just some examples of, this is data from the vendor or screenshots from the vendor. This is not our data, but it just kind of gives you an idea of the types of maps, the types of charts, as well as link analysis that this product does, which is we would now currently do an external tool to be able to find relationships between distinct calls, for example. So is this suspect involved in multiple types of incidents? That would be a manual search to go through each of those incidents. It can put that together in a chart for you and just kind of speed up the rate at which you can kind of go through and look at that data. It makes it more digestible for a detective or a crime analyst. So what we're proposing here is a pilot project, a one-year pilot project. Senate Bill 1735 is providing funding to agencies across the state in order to implement a data sharing platform. And that's item 7A. And then 7B is an agreement to purchase Peregrine. And the reason we specifically would like to go with this one is most of the Valley agencies are going to use this product. And this product has an ability to integrate to other agencies to perform those same searches. This is a capability we already have with an older product. But this is a newer product. It's more robust searching, the better ability to visualize that data. And the old product is kind of coming end of life. Agencies are moving away to more modern technology. So it's upgrading capabilities that we currently have, and most of the Valley agencies are moving to this product. As far as any sharing of that data, that will require a future MOU that'll need to be reviewed. So it's not, the technical capability exists in the system out of the box. If we went with another solution, we'd have to build that in at additional cost. So it's more cost effective to use this product. But the actual what data would get shared and with whom still has to go through an MOU process for review. And the initial pilot project is, again, just looking at the existing RMS report writing system and our CAD dispatch system. We mentioned the regional data sharing capabilities. We're working with a number of Valley agencies now on this to utilize Peregrine collectively as the Valley. Again, to replace this older product that used to be called CopLink, it's now called Crime Tracer, but we've been using that for over a decade. And so it, again, improves the ability to search against multiple agencies from a single interface, and it's replacing the old information sharing tools. With that said, what questions do you have for us, Council?
Did I read this? Did I see it right? This has some state funding attached to it?
Yes, sir. The state is providing, I think it's $215,800. Is that right? Yeah, $215,800, which is the purchase price of the system. So they will completely fund year one.
And then the obligation past that is dependent on.
Yes, and I apologize. I didn't bring up the last slide here. So ultimately, as we go forward, whether we go forward with a second year will depend on, is this a successful product? Is it worth the funding? Is there additional funding available from the state? This is the second year the state has done this. It's the first year Mesa's been included, but when they did year two funding, they included Mesa. The agencies that had year funding last year also got year two funding. So that possibility exists, but we won't know until we're a little further through this process. Again, just going forward, it simplifies data searches, finding those relations, and the potential for this product or other types like products could also be used outside of the police department by other city departments for other types of data correlation searches. So the idea is to prove this out in the police department with the existing state funding.
Can you give me an example of what that would be?
For example, if you wanted to do permitting data or something like that and be able to look at that process and better get a view of who's asking for permits for what type of thing or what, instead of having to do a manual search for that, that's just an example off the top of my head that you could use.
So this is like electronic health records for police.
Councilmember Taylor, essentially we have a record management system which does that, and this is just providing an easier way to do those searches.
It's aggregating.
Yes, ma'am. And we found about 12 years ago we implemented CopLink, Wayne?
Yes,
about that. And that was just using our existing records management data. We found that these products just make it better for our officers and detectives and analysts to look at data we already have.
How many disparate applications do you currently use?
Ooh. I'd have to get you an exact count, council member. It's a lot. There's a lot of applications across the police department. But for this searching, there's one application for police reports. There's our dispatch application. So we don't have multiple applications to write police reports in. It would just be that one.
But what this will do is act almost like a dashboard search where essentially it's sitting at the top layer and it's reaching out and it's calling out to all these other applications to aggregate that information so you can get your search result. Once
Yes,
you get your
Councilmember.
search result, do you still have to go drill back down into said apps so that you can find more information, or will it continue to pull so that you have one window, everything you need?
Councilwoman Taylor, that's exactly what the intent is of the system, is to provide that one window
Speeds it
with
up a lot.
everything. And use a lot of efficiency gained by that. And it's only the data sources we intentionally connect to, right? It can't go out to anything other than what we connect.
Is Peregrine, like Peregrine Falcon, is that right?
Peregrine, yes, ma'am.
Peregrine. Oh, I just lost my train of thought. Hold on, give me a second. If you have multiple disparate apps that you currently use, is this like a federal program that we're giving permission? Those are API calls into all those different applications now. So now you've got encryption processes that are happening. You're making a call at who are you? Yes, you can come in, you can access my information. Are all of those other apps separate companies that we pay? Or do we build those in-house? Are those organic?
Councilmember Taylor, the ones we're talking about right now are ones that are third-party applications. So for example, our records management system and our CAD system are Versaterm products.
Yeah.
And we have them, because the Peregrine product is just returning your data.
Right.
It doesn't have the functionality in it that you use to dispatch a call or write a
manipulate,
report,
yeah.
right?
But it has permission to access all of that data. So are we gonna have to go and basically say, hey, third-party company that we're buying this one particular application for, we're gonna implement this one, will you give access to them? Or are they doing all that work for us? I mean.
It's a combination, and we own that data that's in those systems. And so.
But we don't own the systems.
We don't own the systems.
Right.
No, we lease or however you want to phrase
So
that.
if they make a change, Peregrine handles that, or, because that can get really hairy when you've got layers of applications and this one is a license that you lease or you purchase, but they have an internal change that you then have to do a code update for, and then this new one on top says, oh, I don't recognize that, so I no longer can grab that data and return it in your search.
I mean, if you want to speak more to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Vice Mayor and Council Member. The way that I envision that would work is basically the Peregrine product, what happens is it would grab data and kind of uploads it to the cloud, which they host in AWS.
Yeah.
So I imagine that they would have views in our RMS or CAD data that they're reading. And I don't recall what the upload frequency may be. It could be several times a day, maybe once an hour. And that data is actually copied over into the Peregrine cloud. And that's where the data is aggregated.
Right, but if there's any changes in those disparate applications, who's managing the change, the updates, the software updates? Is it us? Does our internal IT team do that, or does Peregrine do that?
Peregrine and Versaterm in this case would.
Okay, great.
Would we anticipate upgrades in this year contract, or?
In
It's
those
1 year,
systems?
right, yeah.
The Versaterm are kind of rolling upgrades, but they don't generally have massive database changes, right? They're functionality changes that wouldn't affect the data in the background.
And tell me we're not going to be accessing the fire department's EMS database as part of this?
No, sir, this is strictly the police department's records management and CAD data.
Excellent. Councilmember?
I think, I don't know if this has any potential improvements on our public records requests from constituents, residents that ask for. I know we've been working towards getting the timelines better over the years. I know I've asked many times over the last several years, but from individuals asking for police reports, so taking a couple weeks, towards larger, files of videos that people ask. I don't know if this looks at improving that process of public records, because I see on the last slide, public records request searches, but I'm assuming that's more internally, but I don't know if it helps staff to better, timeline-wise, better narrow that gap, how long it takes to get public records requests.
Councilmember Wright, it's a great question. What we envision with that is, again, the idea is just to prove out this technology year one with those two data sources. However, the more internal data sources we could connect that would be potentially subject to public records request could improve that process for our Criminal Justice Information Division, where they go to that single pane of glass, conduct a search, and it says, here's all your available records. Today, they would go to each of those systems to conduct that search to see what's available. So it absolutely could impact that process for them.
Any questions? No, good, good.
What is the proposed maintenance cost for this after the pilot's done and then?
Councilmember Taylor, if it was to proceed with just these existing data sources, that $215,800 annually, it's a hosted solution.
Okay.
So that would
It's
be.
a subscription.
It's a subscription, yes, ma'am.
And we might get year two potentially out of it?
Yes, ma'am. So we'll evaluate that as the legislation moves forward.
Is this something that we'll ever bring in-house to maintain, like our own IT team will be in charge of maintaining this on top of the subscription cost? Or because we pay a subscription cost, it's full service outside of us?
Yes, ma'am, it is full service, and I don't anticipate that we will bring it in-house for support.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about manipulating it. Is it customizable?
What do you mean by customizable?
Like if our police are just like, hey, we need to manipulate this data a little bit more so that we can grab more out of it. Can Peregrine customize dashboards for us that we maybe want to see particular data points?
Yeah, with the data that's available, and if we do need more data, we can contact with Peregrine and we can obtain more data. Now with the dashboarding, we can do that in-house, given the data we have available with Peregrine.
Okay, okay, thanks. Cool.
Good to have a council member who has some expertise in this.
Can't wait to see.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Council.
So the only two questions left on the agenda, I believe, that have been raised are both related items 2A and 2B on the study session. So I guess we can leave the council agenda for Monday and go to item 2A, which is a presentation, discuss, and provide direction on Mesa Connect Transit-Oriented Development Plan. And once again, this will be on the council's agenda on Monday. Third trip up. It's like Christmas.
Almost. All right. Morning, Vice Mayor, Council, again. Rachel Phillips, Assistant Planning Director with the city. I'm excited to be here today to walk you through the Mesa Connected Transit-Oriented Development Plan that's going to be on your agenda Monday for action. This is a project that we've been working on for the last couple years. And as a reminder, this was a result of a grant that we received from the Federal Transit Administration to do land use planning around transit. So kind of going back to the beginning and explaining what is Mesa Connected. So Mesa Connected is an acronym that stands for Connecting Our Neighborhoods for Next Generation Community Transit and Economic Development. And it really is the idea of bringing together all of these different topics and visions to create a complete framework for land use planning around transit. So this is a plan that looks at a 5-mile transit corridor and really is looking at integrating housing, transportation, economic development, and trying to create a built environment that really promotes a diverse mix of housing, supports business and business retention, strengthens our business centers such as Riverview, the Fiesta District, and downtown. Looking at revitalizing a lot of our redevelopment areas since this corridor runs through most of our redevelopment areas. Encouraging infill and adaptive reuse in those areas as well. expanding mobility, and with transit option, looking at reducing traffic congestion and pollution. And then finally, as an opportunity for really enhancing our public spaces and placemaking. So kind of to the basic of what TOD or transit-oriented development is. At the very core, it's really about building complete walkable communities around public transit. So as I was just mentioning, this really looks at having a mixed diversity of housing, also mixed uses such as residential, commercial, employment, having vibrant walkable communities where you have your buildings close to the street, and it's really promoting that walk by and exposure of businesses. TOD is built around planned or existing transit. It includes the incorporation of public spaces to really encourage social interaction, and looks at how this can increase economic opportunity by supporting local businesses and really having that vibrant environment. And I think it's important to talk about what TOD is not, because especially with this plan, what we saw is there's often a lot of confusion about this plan being a land use plan that's looking at strategies for the built environment around transit. This is not a plan for planning transit routes or infrastructure, any capital improvements. Actually, as part of the grant, that was a stipulation from the FTA is that you cannot use this money to do any sort of infrastructure service planning or capital improvements. So this is about land use strategies around transit. It's not specific to any one mode, so it's built to work with any sort of transit type. It's not always about high density development. It's really about being context sensitive. And to go along with that, it's not standardized. So when we look at TOD, it's really intended to be tailored to each neighborhood. And hopefully you'll see that as we go through the presentation. So the Mesa Connected Corridor, this is a 5-mile transit route, and if you want to think about it starting up at Mesa Riverview, the corridor extends a half mile on either side of the route, and it goes down Dobson Avenue along Southern, and then up Country Club to connect with our light rail. And this really does touch a lot of the major activity centers within West Mesa. So we have the Cub Stadium, Mesa Riverview. We also have Banner Desert Medical Center, MCC. We have the old Fiesta Mall site, and then finally our downtown. So why did we look at doing transit-oriented development on this corridor? It really has a lot of components that make it prime for TOD. One of the most important is that it has one of the highest transit riderships within the city. So just within this corridor, we have 27% of our overall transit ridership happening here. And then when we look at some of the socioeconomic characteristics in this corridor, it really has the elements that lend itself to transit ridership. We have over 72,000 residents within the corridor. They're very diverse. They're also very young, as could be expected when we have the university or college there. We have a lower income population, which once again might correlate to some of that younger demographics. We have a high percentage of renters in the corridor and a high proportion of multifamily housing. So this really lends itself to having transit-oriented development and creating kind of that diverse mixed-use environment. So this is our project schedule, and you can kind of see here the various phases that we went through, the first being Explore, where we really looked at the existing conditions of the corridor, then going into our Envision phase, where we reached out to the community and asked, what do you want to see here in the future? And then our planning phase, where we went about coming up with our various strategies and drafting the document. And we're really at the tail end of that process, where we're coming to you on Monday for your decision. So public engagement, it happens throughout the entire process, all those phases, and you can see on the screen just some of the highlights here, but we really try to do a very diverse outreach. We did a lot of outreach through mailers. So you can see just in the Envision phase, we sent nearly 60,000 postcards out inviting people to come to open houses. We tried to meet with various stakeholders. We had focus groups with business owners. We had focus groups with special interest groups such as transportation advocates. We met with the MCC student government body there. We had pop-up events in neighborhoods. And then, of course, we had online surveys and public open houses, just that everyone was invited to. And what we heard from residents during this outreach was a few key things. First was that walkability was very important to them in the future. So they wanted to have walking and biking options to go to shops, restaurants, and public spaces, but they also wanted to have those be safe. So they wanted increased shade, safety, and better bicycle routes within the corridor. Protecting the character of these neighborhoods was very important to them, so they really valued the existing diversity and wanted to see that preserved. They wanted to have context-sensitive development, so kind of the recognition that higher density would be appropriate in some areas, but the desire to protect the existing neighborhoods and really have tailored strategies for that. And the desire for more amenities in the area, so wanting more public open space, restaurants, retail, and grocery stores that they could walk and bike to. And what we heard from the development community was that they wanted to make sure that this plan aligned with market reality, so making sure that this was economically feasible. They wanted to have reduced barriers, so having specific zoning and simplified review and approval processes. They were interested in developing incentives, whether they're financial or regulatory tools. And then once again, having shade and walkability was important for them as well, so to have it well designed to create that pedestrian environment that would really encourage that walkability. So through those processes, a vision statement was created for the plan, and before you, this is what it is. It's the Mesa Connected Corridor is a vibrant, connected community that is safe and resilient, easy to move through, seamlessly linked to transit, and rich in economic opportunity. So the plan itself, it consists of 5 chapters. So chapter 1 is our introduction, where it really just lays out the purpose of the plan. It talks about what the planning process was, what the public engagement was, and then outlines how the plan is organized. Chapter 2 is an overview of the existing conditions, which is provided in greater detail in the appendices, but this highlights some of the key findings about population, economy, mobility, housing, and so on. Chapter 3, that's where the vision is established, and we also have 5 guiding principles and corridor-wide strategies within that chapter. Chapter 4 is about transit node planning, which I'll go into greater detail next on. And then finally, Chapter 5 is the implementation and action plan, where we actually start discussing actions that will help implement some of the strategies outlined in the plan. So transit node planning, Chapter 4, is a large part of the plan. So I wanted to spend more time explaining it because it does, there's a couple different components in it. So we talk about transit node classifications. We have a transit node evaluation and a TOD continuum tool. And then there's also transit node profiles for the 11 proposed transit nodes. So on the screen, you can see a map of the corridor, and there's the 11 proposed transit nodes there. I really want to try to go back to this concept of this being context sensitive and tailored to each one of these transit nodes. So as you can see, some of these nodes are in some of our regional destinations. We have a node up by Riverview. which we have a lot of entertainment, shopping. You'll also see that kind of activity most likely happening at the future Fiesta Mall site. But then we have stops along the corridor that are very different in character. And for example, one of those would be University in Dobson, which is near a lot of residential, much smaller commercial area, so a little commercial node. So when I'm going through this and talking about our strategies, we want to make sure that we're tailoring those to each one of those areas and not just applying a one-size-fits-all approach. So the first way for us to do that was to develop transit node classifications, where we really go through and identify what the characteristics of each one of these stations are and how they will fit into a greater framework for our future planning. So the first one of those are neighborhood transit nodes, and these are really your compact, community-oriented hubs. You have your smaller scale retail, office, some small to medium density housing, such as duplexes, townhomes, and apartments. But these areas really just provide your everyday goods and services. And then we have what's kind of in between, which is your urban transit node. So this is a little higher intensity. It's a mixed use hub as well, medium density, but now we start incorporating some employment uses alongside retail and also medium density housing. But you might start seeing some higher density housing there with some higher rise condos or apartments. But once again, we want to make sure that these areas are providing a walk everywhere experience. And then the most intense of these is the regional transit node. And these are really intended to be your primary economic, cultural, and entertainment hubs. And the examples I gave you were Riverview and the future Fiesta Mall site. So we're really looking at, you'd have your large format office, you would have your employment centers, destination retail and entertainment there, and a dense mix of housing. And this is really meant to attract and have a vibrant environment. So the next aspect of this was a transit node evaluation. So we went through and we conducted an evaluation of each one of these transit nodes. And this was really meant to assess how prepared they are for TOD and for transit-oriented growth in those areas. So we looked at 3 different metrics, the first one being TOD characteristics, which you'll see the measures on each one of these kind of on the side of the screen. But the TOD characteristics really looks at the built environment, how it is now, and how prepared it is really to support TOD or to meet the characteristics of TOD now. So how close are those buildings to the street? How dense is or how intense is the development within those areas? What kind of mixture of uses exist in those nodes right now? The next metric is the redevelopment potential. So this really just looks at various characteristics that indicate how likely the area is to redevelop. So example of that are the number of parcels there, the number of owners, what is the value of the land. So this starts to indicate the possibility that they could be consolidated and redeveloped, or if it's so diverse and mixed ownership that it would be harder for that to happen. The last one is transit readiness, which looks more at the socioeconomic characteristics there. So looking at the number of residents, looking at kind of if they're a minority population, if they're low income, what is that household earning? Because that starts to indicate if that population is likely to use transit more or not. So this tool, as I said, it was meant to give us an idea of these areas, how ready they are for transit-oriented development, but it's also meant to be something that we can use over time, because if any redevelopment occurs in these nodes, it can change a lot of these metrics. So we can use this as time goes on to reevaluate these areas and really tailor different approaches and incentives to try to encourage TOD there. So in the plan, we provided transit node profiles for each one of the 11 proposed transit nodes. And this is just an example of what these sections look like. So first, you have an introduction of each where it talks about the existing conditions in the area. It talks about what kind of the future vision is for those. And talks about what we saw from that TOD metric evaluation and what are some of the strategies that we can employ there. Then we have snapshot info for each, so you can see a map of the existing conditions and some of the prominent developments that you see there today. It gives an overview of the general plan place type for the area, the zoning. It gives you what the mix of land use is as well, the population, employment in that area, as well as those continuum scores. And then we have an illustrative concept plan. So it's just one development scenario. It's not meant to be how exactly the area should develop. It's just to give you an idea of what this might look if we were to redevelop it into more of a transit-oriented development. And then finally, we have design considerations. So we provided specific considerations that could be taken into account to make this more TOD ready. So as I mentioned, this is going to be on the agenda for Monday night for action. And then the next step in this is really the implementation of the plan. And one of the major pieces of that is doing a text amendment. So what staff has been working on so far is a concept of a TOD overlay to really develop some specific development standards for the area. There's also, been the idea that this might be a good approach for redevelopment overall. So we're having conversations with urban transformation about how we might be able to use this a little wider throughout the city. And so we're still working through that, and that would be something that would be coming to council in the future. But that is the end of the presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Before, I think I'll start with Councilmember Duff, I think, and then Mr. Heredia. But before, I've been going through the, the action steps, and what I found is interesting is there's some really, really intriguing ones. Create a demolition assistance program to support the redevelopment of the corridor. That is a really interesting one. I think if that is done as part of this project, to see how that might apply in some other areas that extend beyond where this study is, because I'm sure there are some properties that have been blighted for a long time. Also, to the retail and small businesses that are necessary, having that small business support is really critical to redeveloping these areas. So I see that some of those programs being able to, or projects being able to be extended just beyond the scope of where this study was. So does anyone on my left, because this is more it's West Mesa for the plan, want to begin?
Sure, if you want to recover for what I get her out of the way.
No, ma'am.
Of course, I'm a geek about planning and development, urbanization, and all that kind of stuff. So yes, I did read the entire plan, all the appendices. That's what a 9-hour flight will provide for you. I'm, of course, very supported. I think this is really a boost to the area, and it's going to make it more cohesive in the connected plan, pulling together West Mesa. We have such gems as the Asian District and Banner as an employer and MCC with all the students. And now our new project at the old Fiesta site is really going to pull this together and give so much opportunity for this infill and the walkability and make it really a people place. I appreciate, like I said, page 217, that's probably the appendix. It's building a place, not a project. And I think this could be very, very powerful for West Mesa, including the downtown, as an economic engine and enhance quality of life for West Mesa. This is a long time in coming for West Mesa. We've been waiting for downtown. We've been waiting for Fiesta. We've been waiting for cul-de-sac, Site 17, right? All these projects, and things are coming together. We're getting a Sprouts in District 3. I don't have to drive 9 miles anymore. So there's these things are coming together. So having a plan that pulls it all together and makes it work is smart planning, and it's an enhanced quality of life, and the economics will boom. You know, I've looked at following other areas of the valley, especially Phoenix, because they're going through a TOD development plan right now. And in Phoenix and Tempe alone, they've seen a return on investment. Tempe experienced $7 billion worth of investment from their TOD plan. Phoenix, $12 billion. I know in downtown with just this, we're a little bit slower going over $1 billion in just the downtown. But the reason that why it's so important to have this plan in place, it gives developers, see areas around permanent transit investments as low risk because it ensures foot traffic and accessibility, predictable rental demand, and future public investment. And it pulls us all together. Again, West Mesa has been suffering. We've had strong community feedback to support the mixed use, the walkable development, shade, green spaces. I love that it has the transit nodes, so each area of this land use plan is considering the surrounding area and melding together. So we're not just saying it's going to all be the same and whatever plans we have will fit in the same density, the same uses, whatever. They're being constructed and customized according to the area in the transit nodes, and I think that's very rich. Dobson Road is our busiest corridor in the city, and it has the most crashes. We have no more land to expand, to increase the traffic there. Do we want to increase the traffic? No, I know that's getting a little bit more into the transit. This is just a way to have planned growth. I think from my conversations with Asian District, Councilmember Heredia can expand on this a little bit with Asian District. I understand it with the new Fiesta development, with MCC and Banner, support this kind of growth in order to be able to really connect the surrounding area and make it more mobile and a richer area and better quality of life. And it's going to boost our sales tax dollars that we depend on to fund our city and quality of life overall for the entire city. We depend very heavily on sales tax, and whatever we can do in creating environments that boost that is very important to our bottom line. I think that's about it for right now. It's an overall.
Mr. Heredia? Well, Councilmember Duff took a lot of the information I was going to share, but I think for us in West Mesa, I think I go back to why this corridor, the slide on page 7. I think you look at faster projected growth, 2 times faster than citywide, this area, right? You look at high rate of renters, right? And the high proportion of multifamily housing because of the infrastructure there, right? It's built out. There's very little areas that you can build, single family homes or those kinds of things, right? So the need to create options for the future is the reason why this corridor makes sense. And, thank you for staff and the consultant and other folks that worked on this. It was a long time coming, right? So it was a lot of conversation, a lot of public outreach that happened, a lot of conversations that I had with folks, stakeholders. And I think the TOD, this study highlights the need for this area to create a plan that is future forward, right, future facing, in how we look at this strategically. As Rachel mentioned, these nodes along the way, it's being developed in not one size fits all, but looking at it strategically on what makes sense. And with the recent announcement of what we passed, as Councilmember Summers and Councilmember Dove mentioned, at Fiesta, I think the status quo, we can't maintain the status quo in this area, right? Keep it as is not a direction for the future for us and for West Mesa. And so I think that's the important aspect of what we have to realize, that more people, right, even before the announcement of the theme park district, that our infill development 2, had up to 4,000 units at Fiesta Mall, right? And so that amount of people, we need options for people to travel and have placemaking opportunities across this area. And so that's going to be an important integral part of how we develop a strategy to tackle our future in this area, right? We can't maintain what is there for the life of these small businesses, right? We're seeing great improvements in the Asian district, some slow improvements in Riverview, right? We're adding more people there, and the potential to add more people at Riverview itself is there. And so in order for us to maintain momentum over the next decade or so, I think we need to look at this strategically, and this TOD study is a great start and opportunity to do that, right? As we develop future plannings for this area, right? And so that's where, for me, this is an exciting aspect, a culmination of the last 8 years I've been on council, trying to figure out, right? We had one of the most blighted properties on Alamos Golden Southern that had been, gated for 20 plus years, that they didn't want to do anything with it, right? And so we finally got an agreement. Was it the best? No, but it was a start. And now we're seeing, who would have thought a Sprouts would come right next to it? Nobody in the right mind would have thought Alamos Golden Southern would have a Sprouts coming in to that area. But you look, that is the successes of looking ahead of what we can build for our residents. And so this is, again, a great start, a great opportunity for us to look comprehensive, but also strategic in these areas. As we noted, Fiesta Mall, MCC, they're rebounding with student population. It's the largest community college in the district, in the valley. Banner at Desert is the busiest hospital in their system. You have the Asian districts. We have over 80 restaurants, grocery stores in that 2-mile radius in the Asian district. And then Riverview and the Cub Stadium, right? It makes perfect sense as you look at the whole area, right? And there's other close pieces, right? EVIT has, thousands of students that come in every day right next to, Main and Dobson, right? And so you have all these components. And then plus looking at how do we interact with our partners like Tempe, right? Because, there are Rio Salado from rural to Tempe Marketplace. They're gonna potentially add, I think what I heard, over 50,000 people there over the next 20 plus years. And so that, they need places to go, right? They can't all intake in those areas. So we need to make sure that they also come to the Asian district. They come to Riverview, right, to shop and spend their money here. So it's a way to look at how do we set us up for success for the future. So but I'll end that there.
Very good. To my right, anyone? We'll go straight across. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for all the work over the last couple of years. I know this has been a lot. I think this is an important project because this, it's important to note, this is an existing corridor. The characteristics of this corridor are happening, or have been happening organically. It's young, it's a lot of people who rent, who are mobile, that may not have a car, that obviously are, and because of that, there's a high ridership. And that's all been taking place, and which is really cool to see. And there's a lot of it actually through, as both council members mentioned, through in this corridor with the Fiesta District and the Asian District, and it happening on its own. And so I think this is a good time, and the city has taken a kind of a step back approach to allowing that to happen. And it's now a good time to step in and do some planning to really kind of put some parameters around, in the first sense, put parameters around and protect some of those existing characters and look at this context specific. And at the same time, make it easier for it to continue forward as it already has, right? So I think we're doing both of those in this plan, and I think that's really important. And to help us as a city capitalize on what's already happening, right? In a transit corridor, you really want to make it easier to build wealth for the people that are there and the businesses, right? And I think that's what this plan does. And then the last thing I'd like to say is that it's extremely important, and for all of us to remember the feedback that came from the people that live there. That's where this plan is derived from and will be implemented from, and was written in a reflection of what the people who live there and work there and own business there want. And so that's extremely important, and I think you've done a good job of your engagement and reflecting what they desire for their community in this area. So, thank you.
Councilmember?
Well, this is a really big plan, and I'm very new to the council. I have taken a little bit of time and looked over it, but I haven't had the opportunity to ask a lot of questions around it. It's pretty extensive, and my first question might be geared for Jim. I'm not quite sure, but what would it look like to delay this? Because I need to do a lot of research before I can just cast a vote on this, and because I wasn't a part of so much of this and able to do that research.
So Mayor and Council, I'd defer to planning on what other steps that they're looking at, and also obviously a number of council members that have been here have been waiting for this for literally years, I think.
Yeah, Vice Mayor, Councilmember Taylor. So we do have a pass-through agreement through Phoenix because they manage the regional grants that we get from the FTA. So we do have a deadline to close out the grant by the end of February. So that means that we have to get in all of our final paperwork and have to have gone to council for their action about a month before that. So we are really approaching kind of that deadline there.
So January would be the latest.
Yes.
In essence. Okay. I might need that because this is quite a bit. I think it's great that we have a plan that we're putting together for transportation and for urban development. Because I'm so new to this, I just have a few questions. Is this kind of like a if you build it, they will come idea? So I was looking at the numbers that you provided, and I noticed that, for example, the average income is $20,000 less than the majority of Mesa. Your outreach was great, but I noted that, and this is just because I'm a numbers girl, you had a 0.08 response rate from the 58,000 mailers, the Facebook feedback. I think there was some town halls, et cetera. If I take the 72,000 residents and I look at the 455 respondents, that leaves me with a 0.0063% feedback rate. And this is a really big plan for such a small amount of community feedback and where you want to go with it. And that's why I don't necessarily feel like I may not have the full picture and an adequate scope to make a good assessment on it. So I know I have done some research, but I don't know if I've done enough. And I have a lot of questions around, such a small amount of community feedback for such a very large transportation and community development plan. And you mentioned a grant, and I understand that we have some money coming from a grant, but there's numbers questions I have around, like, what is this potentially costing Mesa to implement some of this plan? The residents that I've talked to want to know, of course, and you can answer this now, are we already assuming that the train cars connecting from Tempe, running past Sloan Park, and then potentially running through the Dobson corridor, or is that open to multiple types of transportation? Are we taking up a portion of the road in order to do that? Like, are there already future plans in process for some of this? Yeah. And I don't want to necessarily have to tackle all those right here, right now, but we can if we want to.
Councilmember Taylor, I can try to answer some of those right now. As far as the public outreach, when we do any sort of planning project, text amendments, I think you'll see that it's really hard to get public engagement and involvement in those. So that's why we try to use multiple different avenues to engage the public, like going out to them directly, having smaller focus groups, having the larger open houses. We sent out the mailers. It's just really hard to get people themselves to engage in the process.
Could I jump in? Sorry,
Sure.
Rachel. And for your sake, Councilmember Taylor, Council members Duff and Heredia have represented these areas for the last 7 years. So I think that's a good place. So even though the engagement in this period of time may seem, which again, you'll see it is actually pretty good when you look at it. But they have been representing this area for 7 years. So they definitely know. And I would suggest you definitely talk to them. Yeah, I think that would be a good part of it.
Vice Mayor, Council, if I could also step in on the community engagement. I think that one of the important things that we did was we provided that opportunity. And typically in any kind of engagement process, those are probably some of the most important things you can do is those opportunities. So there were the pop-ups, there were the focus groups, there was the online survey. There was a lot of social media to try to get people to engage. Getting people to engage is not something that we can do, but I think if you look at the outreach program we did, it was very diverse, and we tried as many avenues as we could to bring in the input. I think the input we did get was very positive about the plan. I think especially from a lot of the businesses, the people who are living in that vicinity. So outreach is always a challenge because you can't make people participate, but I think because we diversified the type of outreach we had, we gave people a lot of opportunity to participate. So I guess that's what I would say to the outreach. And Rachel, if I could, about if you build it, they would come. It's important to note we're not building anything here. This is a land use plan. So this is just a land use plan that will turn into text amendments and design standards and guidelines to try to encourage future development and private investment. So we're not building anything. This wasn't predicated on any specific type of transit. We're not looking at the transit itself. This is all about the land use outside of that right of way, outside of the road, outside of if any transit does come in. It's a land use plan to set up opportunities for people to be able to live in specific areas where investment is occurring and for investment to occur. So there's no cost associated with the adoption of this plan. As we start implementing the plan, the zoning, again, will hopefully set up that framework to encourage investment in that area from our private partners.
Thank you. Is it kind of a living document in that things can change, they can evolve, however you would want
Yeah,
to
Vice Mayor,
think of it?
Council, every plan we do is a living document. The worst thing you can do is develop a plan and then assume that it's going to stay like that forever, because cities are very
they're
organic,
changing. Yeah.
right? So that's why we come before council as planning. You see us a lot because all of those things are changing, the way we implement things, the way we regulate things, the way we plan things. So that's why I think council sees a lot from the planning division, because it is organic. It has to evolve as things evolve. And I think Councilmember Goforth brought up a good point. A lot of this was happening anyway, and now what we're trying to do is capture that as we start to look at how do we really capture that to make sure that this area continues to grow.
And so Mary mentioned a little bit on this, but the plan does not bind the city to any financial obligations or investments. So they are land use strategies, and the actions are programs or text amendments that we would come to council in the future for your approval on. So there is no binding effect of approving the plan.
Is that including like zoning ordinances? Okay.
That's, yes.
Okay.
On that, if I can intercede, does it bind the private property owner that owns the property, whether they have to comply with all this, or does it change zoning?
Vice Mayor Summers, no, the plan does not affect the zoning. That would be through future text amendments, and that would be the overlay that I had mentioned, and that would come before council. And the approach that we're considering right now is something similar to the form-based code, where it would be an optional opt-in. So it would be.
It'll be a tech corridor kind of thing.
Right.
Where they have their rights, or they can opt into this new system.
Correct.
That
So we would not go out and rezone properties. It would be something that they could voluntarily opt in to use that might be a little more streamlined and have different development standards that could result in higher densities in some areas, not all, because once again, we talked about these different nodes and node types.
Sorry to step on you, it just seemed like an opportune time.
No,
to
it's a great
ask
question. I
that.
mean, this is a lot of information for me to take in, and I would like time, obviously, to speak with council members Heredia and Dove in more detail. I think my concern is just, if I'm like, yes, let's do it, then what have I, in an uneducated fashion, locked myself into, and I do not want to be that person on the council. So I'm trying to gather information, like literally right now, and read over it amongst all the other amazing things on this agenda, and make an informed decision that encourages some of the vision that my other council members have, but also that I can include my own vision for with all of Mesa, including District 2. They may have questions as well. I'm more the voice for District 2, which really is not as involved in this, but they have their own assumptions, their own ideas. And I need to be able to go to them and say, hey, this is where you were right, this is where you were wrong. So, you know what I mean? So with that being said, I guess my overall question, maybe for you or might be Mary, but if I vote yes to approve this plan and I find out, whoa, there's some things in here that are kind of jarring and shocking, this is flexible, right? These are things that can change, or these are not laws that we're just voting in on this, right?
Vice Mayor, Council.
I'm thinking about how
Councilmember Taylor.
concrete is this?
So as a plan, what this does is it provides guidance for us, right? So there's nothing concrete that you are committing to in terms of building or a zoning text amendment. We're going to come forward every time we're implementing any of the actions that are in the action plan. So you'll see the last chapter is that action plan, and those are some of the specific tools we want to use to help to revitalize the area. But anything that requires any kind of action by council, we would come before you. So this is just laying the vision and the foundation so we can then start moving through to implement those to, again, capture all of the good things that are happening in this corridor.
Okay.
And to that point, I'm going to point one out because I've been highlighting the action plan. I think if you go through that, that's a really good place to start. So I provided a few examples of things that I really like. Demolition, for example, demolition plan. But here's one, and I would assume this is not set in stone, and this would be a conversation for council, but consider expanding the billboard overlay district. You already know what my vote's going to be on that. I assume that just because that's in this plan, that is not, that would have to come back to council for a discussion and a vote, correct?
Correct, Vice Mayor Summers. And so the idea behind that is we've seen this tool used in other cities. And when we say billboard, it's from the operational idea that it would be allowing advertisements of off-site goods and services. But what we've seen this tool used for in other cities is almost like the big screen that you see at ASU, that in certain areas, such as maybe the Fiesta District, that you allow those larger signs, but there's an obligation that they pay into a fund that would pay for placemaking or public art in that district. So any sort of idea like that would be coming to
Right.
council
And-
for.
And I think I said this in that conversation, there's a difference between, for example, what they did in New York City in Times Square and just endless rows of billboards that I absolutely.
And I don't think we're talking about that.
No,
Vice
but it
Mayor,
is part of
Council,
this plan.
That's correct. I think what we're talking about, and actually, I
As it
think
admonished me, yeah.
the city of Denver is one that has used strategically placed offsite advertising to fund public art throughout the
But
city.
I
So
wanna
that's
get-
what we're talking
yeah,
about.
And
But
just
yes,
to
that
be
will-
back to the point, is
Absolutely.
this is just an example of something
Correct.
I don't like that's in this, but doesn't necessarily have to come to fruition because it is a working plan and we would have to see these things.
And we would have this conversation
I-
when you came back.
Because I hate that. One
Further
thing-
discussions
Yeah.
can be had
On,
around this.
on 112, yes. On 112, it says incentivize or require low-impact development. What is features in new projects? What is that? Do you know off the top of your head?
Low impact development refers to water and wastewater. So it's about green infrastructure. So bioswales and things. So trying to get private developers to use more of those tools as a sustainability feature.
Okay. I didn't pick it out of context, so thank you. Any more comments, questions on this?
I do have just one quick question. The study that was done for the corridor, the transit corridor, but was that funded by our taxpayers, or was that money that was granted to us, that was just our money that came back to us? Like, how did we do this study? Because I had people, when I was campaigning, they were like, how did we pay for this study? And I don't know, I don't have an answer for them.
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Taylor, are you talking
Clarify
about
which
this
study.
specific
I'm
study
sorry,
or
the plan is not
transit?
opening for me, but maybe I can
Oh,
borrow yours. This
yeah,
5-mile transit
Do you want-
route, this
Oh, you're
streetcar
talking-
study, yeah.
The streetcars.
I think that's what I'm looking
Yeah,
at.
so
yes.
that U-shape,
Yes.
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Taylor, that U-shape you see on the screen is a recommendation from two separate studies. One is the Fiesta District Alternatives Analysis, which the City of Mesa did and completed, I think, in 2021. And the other one was the Tempe Mesa Streetcar feasibility study, which was also completed in 2021. Both those studies were funded by Proposition 400, which is, for another 4 weeks, our regional transportation sales tax that funds highways, transit, and transportation. So we didn't have any local money in those two studies.
Okay, regional transportation tax, okay, got
Yes.
it.
So, and Prop 400 sunsets on December 31st, and then Proposition 479 was passed by voters last November, and that will start collecting funds then.
Okay. Thank you, I can give them a cogent answer now, I appreciate it. Okay, that was my one question for that, and then, hold on, just making sure I have all of this. Oh, I was asked for public outreach with some of this, because I have residents who dived into this pretty deeply. How long did the public outreach go for? I want to be able to answer this question. How long was that done? Over what span of time?
So let me get to that slide. So Councilmember Taylor, it really occurred throughout the whole process. So we kicked this off in 2023, and that's when we started the public outreach portion of it. So it's been going on to this point, and currently the draft plan is posted on our website, and there's feedback forms that people can
fill out
and provide us feedback. We've only received 5 from the public.
Got it. All right, for now,
Okay.
That was very helpful. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who answered all my questions.
Absolutely. So we have one more item on the agenda to cover. That's on our e-bike code update. I'm going to give us a 5 to 10 minute recess so folks can take a bit of a break, and we'll come back in about 10. Very good?
Thank you.
We okay? No, in 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
So many breaks.
9:52, we'll come back into our study session, and so this is item 2B, if I recall, e-bike code updates and communications strategy. So who would like to lead off?
Awesome. Good morning, Vice Mayor and Council. We're excited to be here to talk about these proposed updates to the city code to start to allow e-bikes in parks, as well as our communication strategy around this. So this will be introduced to council on Monday, and then the final vote would occur on January 12th. Before we jump into the presentation, we'll start with some introductions, and I'll have Andrea start us.
Andrea Moore, Director for Parks, Rec, and Community Facilities.
And I'm Haley Smith, the Support Services Administrator for Parks, Rec, and Community Facilities.
Lieutenant Ryan Stokes, I'm the Traffic Lieutenant for Mesa PD.
And Captain Jim Barnhart, I'm the Safety Officer for Mesa Fire Medical.
As you can tell, this is a team effort. It requires a lot of different departments, so I'm grateful to have everyone up here to present today. So just an overview of where we're going with this discussion. We're going to start with a conversation about what our city code currently says, and then also take a look at what other cities are doing with regards to e-bikes and e-scooters in their parks. Then we'll specifically talk about the different updates that we're proposing to the city code. But we also wanted to take this opportunity to talk about the vandalism that we're seeing at the parks related to e-bikes and e-scooters, as well as different safety concerns, because we want to wrap all of this into our communication strategy to just build more community awareness around e-bikes and the proper usage of them if these updates are approved. And so then we'll discuss our communication strategy around that, as well as end with our enforcement strategy. So currently, e-bikes are not allowed in City of Mesa parks. Only non-motorized bikes are allowed. And it's also currently the law that if you are riding an e-bike.
Sorry, can I stop you right here?
Yes.
Sorry, I know it's early. Can you define an e-bike for us, just so we can start with that?
Yes, we can definitely start with that.
So when we're talking about e-bikes, there's a couple different classifications. So for an e-bike to be defined per city code as well as ARS, it has to have the ability to pedal is one factor. And then there's class 1, 2, and 3. If you want to go to the next slide. This will kind of break down. So a class 1 e-bike has a max speed of 20 miles an hour while pedaling assist. A class 2 e-bike, you can use throttle only, but it still has to have the ability to pedal. And then and with a maximum speed limit of 20 miles an hour. And then a class 3 with pedal assist can reach up to 28 miles an hour. So there's the 3 different classes of e-bikes. A class 1, they all have to have pedals. They all have to be able to pedal. Class 2 is the only one that can propel itself with the battery only, without pedaling. So if you're on a bike that has pedals and you're not pedaling, that would be a class 2 e-bike. And then the speed for the class 3 goes up to 28 miles an hour.
That's helpful, thank you.
Do you know off the top of your head, or maybe we could do some quick research, what the average speed of a regular bicycle would be for a rider?
For a pedal bike?
Yeah, so what is the average pedal bike, no battery, how fast can riders go?
I know from some cycling experience, if you're going to average 20 miles an hour on a pedal bike, that is really fast.
That's
to be able to maintain for more than a mile or 2.
Yeah.
Most of the bikes that we would see, I would say, are anywhere in the neighborhood of between 10 and 15 miles an hour.
Okay.
Or just pedal only.
10 to 15 miles an hour, that's a good number. Okay, thank you.
So right now, e-bikes are not allowed in Mesa parks. And riders also have to be 16 years of age or older in order to ride an e-bike or in Mesa. And that's because they understand the basic rules of the road and right-of-way at this point, because we're expecting that 16-year-olds have a driver's license and they would have gone through driver's ed. And we also have a 15-mile-per-hour speed limit on our shared use paths. So that's our canal paths. So in looking at other cities, we're not alone in starting to allow e-bikes in our parks. And looking at Gilbert, Scottsdale, and Tempe, they all do allow e-bikes in their parks with certain caveats, like whether it's they can only be certain classes, or Tempe requires the motor to be disengaged if you're going to be in the park using an e-bike. We're seeing that all of the cities that we looked at, Gilbert, Scottsdale, Tempe, Phoenix, and Chandler, have age requirements around e-bikes, but Tempe was the only one that has a helmet requirement. So this is just an overview of the updates that we're proposing to the city code, and then we'll dive into each of these updates a little bit deeper as we move through the presentation. So first, we're adding definitions for e-bikes and the different classes that Lieutenant Stokes talked about. And then we're also differentiating between what's a motor vehicle versus what's a motorized electric vehicle. Because right now, the Parks Code only classifies motorized vehicles in general, so we want to pull out and have clear definitions for each of those. Then we'll also be clearly defining a Class 1, 2, and 3 e-bikes in this code as well. And then these updates would allow just Class 1 and Class 2 e-bikes, as well as e-scooters in the parks. So Class 3 would not be allowed in the parks, wherever bikes are allowed. And there are a few caveats with this, that they must be operated safely, and we're proposing a 5-mile-per-hour speed limit within the parks that would be added to the traffic code, as well as a helmet requirement for riders under 18 that would be added to the traffic code. And then we're also proposing to change multi-use path to shared use path in the Parks Code, just to fall in line with the rest of the traffic code language that's used for that. So currently on our shared use paths or canal paths, we have a 15-mile-per-hour speed limit. And then we're proposing adding a new speed limit requirement within the park of 5 miles per hour for Class 1 and Class 2 e-bikes and e-scooters.
Just one more clarification on the definition. So an e-bike also has to be under 750 watts. So a lot of the ones that we see out on the road are these electric motorcycles that don't have pedals. Those will be classified as motorcycles, not in this discussion for e-bikes. These are ones that specifically can have the ability to pedal.
So we have to see pedals on this bike. It's not like a moped.
Yes, you have to see pedals, and it has to have the ability to be able to pedal and propel it.
Councilmember?
Yeah, I have a question. So our shared use paths, the canal paths and other shared use paths, are not in the park system, right? They're part of transportation, isn't that correct? So we're kind of mixing two things here, I think, because when you go to transportation, transportation has standards for those because they're a transportation mode. And now we're making them part of the parks. So let's talk, am I confusing that?
Go forth. The shared use paths have always existed in Parks Code in terms of rules for how to operate and function on those. So the maintenance of them is different. Transportation maintains them. The funding source is typically related to multimodal transportation, and they're maintained by the Transportation Department because of the commonality between streets and straight sidewalks essentially next to the canals, and lighting maintenance that can be done with similar equipment, street sweeping, things like that. But the regulations regarding the use of them have always been in Parks Code.
That doesn't make sense to me, but that might be, I mean, especially if they're built to a transportation standard, it doesn't make sense to me that then we would regulate them in parks. But I'll think about that as we move through this. Thanks.
I covered most of this, but this just gives you a breakdown. The top speed that each class is the max speed. currently where they're allowed in parks and updating what the new code would allow them. The bicycle class E, 1, 2, and 3 as far as, and as well as the electric mini scooter. Just a little differential between the electric mini scooter. Electric mini scooter goes up to 30 pounds. Some of the bigger scooters, an electric stand-up scooter has a max weight of 75 pounds. Like a bird scooter, like how much it actually weighs, the actual device, not the people riding it.
Thank you. I think you saw that's really small.
And so then here are those clear definitions that we're adding to with these city code updates, is to clearly define a motor vehicle and then a motorized electric vehicle. And then the highlighted in blue motorized electric vehicles would be the ones that would be allowed in the parks with these updates. And so the city code updates would also include more information on what it means to operate safely within the park. One of those is watching the speed, which includes that 5-mile-per-hour speed limit within the parks. It also details that you need to primarily be using these e-bikes or e-scooters on sidewalks, not on playground equipment, benches, or tables. They need to be yielding to the right-of-way of pedestrians or people using a mobility device. And then we also have that helmet requirement for riders under the age of 18. And a reminder that riders must be 16 years or older, which is already the law. We are seeing damage across our parks from different types of motor vehicles and motorized electric vehicles. And so part of this public outreach campaign is to build more community awareness around the different types of vandalism that we're seeing, to start addressing that within our park system. We have included some images here that we're seeing across the system, which can include ruts in the dirt or burnout on equipment or basketball courts. And some of these are newly painted basketball courts or newly installed equipment. And so we recognize the need to bring more community and public awareness around this and help reduce these vandalism incidents.
Can you clarify what type, do we know what type of scooter, vehicle, battery operated, whatever is causing this damage?
So a lot of, Vice Mayor, Council, a lot of the damage is caused by scooters, e-scooters specifically, because you can create some of those burnouts more easily on something like that.
So they're holding the scooter down, revving up the throttle,
Yes.
and burning out. So this isn't e-bikes then? E-bikes isn't causing this damage, or?
They definitely could, but we see it more with the scooters and the electric motorcycles. But
So
the
there's
e-bike would have the
potential for the
capable.
e-bikes.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
okay.
An e-bike weighs significantly more than a scooter, am I right on that?
Yes.
So it's probably harder to burn out on an e-bike or go down a slide than on a scooter. I
Well,
mean,
it definitely is for me. I'm too old for that.
I've seen kids pop wheelies on the scooters in our neighborhood.
Yeah, that I've seen. Chief? Captain?
Vice Mayor and council members, I think our role in this is a little bit more with the community outreach. The fire department has caught up to lithium-ion emergencies. Much like you, sir, I would have told you 27 years ago I wouldn't have spent this much time dealing with lithium-ion batteries. But in the regards to where we had gaps was how to own them, how to operate them safely, right? And most of our hazards we deal with is usually going to be associated with improper usage, improper storage, improper charging. So when we look at the problem overall with the batteries for us is it's the rapid propagation of fire, like how fast it develops, and the extreme toxic nature of it. When we first started looking at lithium-ion emergencies, it was common to hear, well, all house fire smoke is toxic. This is a little bit different. It's just different chemical makeups. When we're looking at batteries, and really the micromobility is how we classify this, or personal electronics, we want to recommend, that the owners look for changes in the shape of the batteries. If they smell an odor, they see temperature changes, right? If it's color or leaking anything, those are signs that there's an impending problem coming, right? And it could develop pretty quickly. If we can play the video, it's a quick 5 seconds here. Just shows you how fast a fire goes from an incipient phase to flashover, where we get to three-dimensional fire burning in every aspect of that compartment, right? So if you think of charging an e-bike or a scooter in your house, your apartment, a lot of times they charge them, they don't want to do damage to the carpet or the flooring, so they charge it real close to the door on the tile or the entryway. You have that scooter fire happen in the doorway of your apartment, and you have no other way to get out of your occupancy. So, next slide, please.
Too late, we were gonna blow something up again. All right.
So, if we go to changing ordinances within the city and we're communicating out to our communities, we're trying to take every opportunity we can right now just to get public messaging of how to safely operate and charge these batteries. So some of the common ones are, follow the instructions, buy original equipment from the manufacturer. If your laptop battery goes bad, don't buy the cheap one you can find on Amazon. Buy the one supplied by the manufacturer. Charge with the appropriate cords. I tell everybody, don't buy the cord at QT. No offense to the business owner, but you don't want to buy that cord because it wasn't manufactured and designed for the wattage or voltage for the device that you're trying to use it on. So out of convenience, sometimes don't take that opportunity.
There are bags you can buy that they're supposedly for safety. You can put your battery charger in there, hook it up, seal the bag. Do those work? Have we seen any testing on them?
They
from
do
the
work.
NFPA or UL?
We use some of the insulating medium in there is called, with a product that we purchased called Cell Block. So that thermally insulates that battery. It doesn't take the toxic nature away from it, but if it continues to go in thermal runaway, now inside that package, the heat is being absorbed by that. It's more of a kitty litter vermiculite type material. So it kind of melts like a glass and kind of encompasses that battery. So they do work. I
would like to see.
It's a unique hazard.
I would like to see, so you're right, it doesn't contain the smoke, but it buys time. And it buys time for the fire department to get there, and it could save some property. I'd like to look into those and see if there's been some research done on that, if we want to make recommendations. Hey, if you're going to charge your e-bike battery, maybe that's something we could suggest to people. But like everything else, there's cheap stuff on websites, and there's the better stuff.
100%.
Hopefully you usually get what you pay for. So, all right, thank you.
So moving into our community outreach campaign around this, our tagline right now is Mesa, mind your motors, so good times keep on rolling. Right now, over the last couple of years, being mindful has really become more popular. Be mindful of how you treat other people. Be mindful of your eating. And so we're wanting to tag on to that mindful aspect and tie that into our public outreach campaign for this. So we'll use other supporting taglines, which could be something like share the space, enjoy the place. And with our campaign goals being to increase safety, that's number one, throughout our community. We want to create safer parks, safer community, reduce these property damage and vandalism incidents that we're seeing across the city, increase community awareness of the laws surrounding e-bike and e-scooter usage, encourage peer accountability and reporting, and continue to position Mesa as a proactive city prioritizing safety and accessibility. So with that, our campaign pillars are to be mindful of the law, safety, and community property. And we have different audiences that we're targeting throughout this campaign, really targeting parents of children who are riding e-bikes, as well as our adult park visitors and property owners. So this is going to take a community to get involved and to help us spread the word on this. And we're approaching this really from 3 different angles of trying to build community awareness, as well as talk about the compliance and the enforcement piece surrounding these updates if they're approved, and that course correction. And the course correction is really where we'll be involving the media at large to have them help us spread the word on what we want to see people doing instead and kind of correcting some of that behavior. And so continuing with that, be mindful, we're gonna use that to spread this message and remind people that riders need to be 16 years or older, that e-bikes and e-scooters are only allowed on the sidewalks. You need to wear a helmet if you're under 18. You should only be riding 5 miles per hour within the park. And so we'll be utilizing all of the marketing at our disposal, whether that's putting information in our internal newsletter, the city newsletter, partnering with HOAs to get this information in their newsletters, creating different flyers and postcards, social media posts, updating our website, and having a whole webpage dedicated to the rules and regulations surrounding e-bikes and e-scooter usage in parks, and possibly even pursuing billboards as well.
Yeah. With the increase of e-bikes and e-motorcycles and some of the damage that we've seen, so our goal with the police department as well as the city is after the message has been delivered for 30, 60 days, we will then target certain locations that are data-driven by accidents, number of complaints that we get, and we will combine with our patrol resources, our specialty units, our traffic unit, and we will go target these areas after they've had an opportunity to understand the new law and be educated. Also be pushing the message out through all of our SROs that are in all our high schools and junior highs. That's the majority of the kids that are riding these are in junior high and high school. And so we want to make sure that the message is clear before we show up on a Friday night and dedicate 30 or 40 officers to do an enforcement campaign in that area.
With that, we'll take any other questions that you all have.
All right. Council members.
Vice Mayor, if I may, just back to Councilmember Goforth's comment regarding where this is located. What you'll see on Monday night is the introduction of an ordinance that addresses both Title 6, Chapter 10, which is the Parks Code, as well as Title 10, Chapter 1, which addresses the Transportation Code. So they will mirror each other, as the comments regarding electric bikes is located in both sections.
What about the miles per hour, though? The speed?
Speed is addressed in both of those as well.
It's not the same, right? Because you have bikes without motors going more than 5 miles an hour on Canal Pass. So you're, right, so you've got those separated and different, I would assume.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Vice Mayor, Councilmember Goforth, the traffic code already has the 15 mile per hour speed limit just in general for the shared use paths and canals pass, so that's already there. And then we're just adding in that, and in addition, it's a 5 mile per hour speed limit if you're in a park.
If you're in a park. And is that for any bike if you're in a park? I mean, or are we just saying motorized e-bikes?
Councilmember Goforth, it would apply to e-bikes.
Only e-bikes. So if you're
the point being safe operations more than anything, so that people understand the general, because most people are walking 2 to 3 miles an hour, that a bike shouldn't be zooming in and out of people, whether it's motorized or not. And just for clarification, the 15 miles an hour would still apply on the canal banks.
On the shared use paths.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so so again, the 5 miles an hour only applies to e-bikes. So if I'm on a pedal bike, I can go 15 if I want in the park.
Yes. You could.
You can get crazy. I don't understand how that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. With the weight of the e-bikes, the stopping distance is greater. A pedal bike doesn't have the same weight as an e-bike with the battery and the motor, so it's easier to stop if you're going 10, 15 miles an hour.
Yeah. I'm not sure I necessarily disagree because, the e-bikes are, they're heavy, they're down. I have one. So, I mean, I know how much it weighs. It's very heavy. And we kind of, do we want to encourage people to bike and use their own pedals? Even though I mean, if you're over 50, it's okay. Under 50, you should just pedal. That was a joke, by the way.
That is ageism, and I am reflected in it. Any other questions? Yes.
I have a couple questions. What is the original reason for even approaching this idea of allowing e-bikes in parks? Like, why did this come to the table?
Yeah, Vice Mayor, Councilmember Taylor. So e-bike usage has been on the rise over the last couple of years, and one of our missions as a department is to continue to meet the ever-changing needs of our community. And so with that, we've seen this as usage is on the rise, but we want to be able to put more parameters around the usage and have clearer messaging on when and where e-bikes and e-scooters are allowed in order to meet the changing needs of our community and provide a foundation for the police department to stand on as they're working on different enforcement and messaging. But that's really where it came from, is just wanting to meet the changing needs of our community.
Thank you. And I'm going to push back, not to be like, combative or anything, but when you say a need, is it a need or is it a want? One, and two, are we having issues with people ripping up our parks on e-bikes? So we're like, hey, how do we enforce some way of mitigating that? So we need to have essentially an accommodation for e-bikes in parks so that we can enforce rules around it instead of saying, hey, you're in trouble for, ripping up through the sand or going down a slide. Oh, what are you going to do to me? There's no law around this. Am I understanding that correctly?
No, Vice Mayor, Councilmember Taylor, we have had lots of complaints about people feeling unsafe in the parks because of the way people are riding e-bikes and scooters. And so the answer before this code change is it's just outright not allowed. That didn't feel reasonable because the community very much is interested in being able to ride e-bikes and scooters in the park system. And we don't want to disallow that. We want to make sure people stay safe and stop hurting the equipment, the improvements that are in the park that cause thousands of dollars worth of damage.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was thinking, right.
So it's trying to say, and that's why we went through a process talking to the Parks Board, talking to the Transportation Advisory Board of the answer is not outright banning it. And before we start a campaign saying, be safer in the park system, let's make sure the code recognizes what people should be accepting and that people are already in the parks with e-bikes, but here's a way to do it in a safe manner and a non-damaging manner.
So it was disallowed, but people were breaking that disallowance. So we're saying, how do we find a solution for that? Okay. What's the recourse for those little mini bikes? Do you know what I'm talking about? They're really loud. Some people literally stick pedals on them now so that
We have seen that.
looks like a bicycle.
Yes.
And they are super fast. I think my neighbor has one it goes 40 miles an hour. So guess what he did? He just put pedals on it. So how are
if we happen to stop them and the pedals are not operable,
you're just going to test it out?
that would be deemed a motorcycle.
Yeah,
And in
yeah, it
order
is.
to ride that legally on the road requires title, registration, MVD. You have to have a motorcycle endorsement and all the safety equipment that would go if you bought a Harley Davidson or a regular motorcycle. Just because it's an e-motorcycle or a gas-powered, smaller motor-driven cycle, those all fall under the same rules that a motorcycle is required, and they're not allowed to ride in the parks.
Good, because that's a serious safety
Yes.
concern. They're not like a bicycle, but
No.
people make them look like a little
Yes.
tiny bicycle. Okay. And then speeding, I mean, I kind of am with her. How are you going to determine when someone's not going 5 miles an hour? Like, are we going to have like speed radar? Really, how will you know this?
If we get complaints of a certain park where the complaint is speed, we definitely could deploy resources and an officer with a LiDAR gun just out there educating bicyclists that are pedaling by, just to let them know, hey, this is what your speed is. I'm not sure if our speed trailers go down to 5 miles an hour, so I don't know if that would be operable.
So it might be really obvious if it's not 5 miles an
If it doesn't flash 5 miles, then yes.
Okay.
But we would go out there and educate if we got a specific complaint about speed in a specific park.
Okay, and then you're gonna have a lot of kids that are not gonna be 16 years old that are just gonna they don't care. Like, they're not interested in whether or not there's a rule around it. And there's a lot of parks. And I'm just thinking about a lot of police officers being dispatched to manage this. That's cost, right? There's a dollar amount associated with that. Have we considered all of that? I mean, I live in a very active neighborhood. There's a lot of kids with e-bikes and e-scooters and mini bikes. And I mean, they'll rip through the park in the center of our neighborhood. And their parents are like, oh, they're just having fun,
So the age limit has actually been in place since 2019. That's been already on the city code to ride anything with an electric motor, nobody under the age of 16. And just to clarify, it is a secondary offense.
Can you say exactly, is that like a misdemeanor?
not a misdemeanor, it's a civil offense, but we can't stop somebody just based on their age. We have to find a reason to stop them for violating an additional traffic violation, not stopping at a stop sign,
Yeah.
not following the bicycle laws, not strictly looking at them going, they look like they're 14, I'm gonna stop them.
Yeah.
We have to have a legitimate lawful reason to stop them. Then the age limit would come into play during our investigation if we found out, okay, they're only 14 or 15
Or 10.
or 10 or whatever the age is, then that law would apply as a secondary code that's on the.
And how do you cite a child? Do you go to the parents? Like, what does that look like?
Depending on the age, I know that we have cited probably 12 and up. It would probably be a case by case. It would probably, if an 8 or 9 or 10-year-old was riding, it'd probably be an educational
We've got them in our,
with the parents. And then if the parents could also be held liable if they're allowing their children to ride motorcycles that would be deemed a motorcycle, if it's an e-motorcycle or what you were talking about, the mini bikes. If an adult is allowing that child to ride that, then the parent could be cited for allowing them to drive without a license.
that's a great idea. Okay. And then my very last question, sidewalks, well, actually I had 2 questions. I'll ask you the easy question first. If this doesn't work well, can we just go back and be like, you guys can't have e-bikes and motorized vehicles, like scooters, in parks? If we find that this is just, the enforcement's not working, they don't care about 5 miles an hour, they're still going nuts in all of our city parks and vandalizing them, damaging them. I mean, what does that look like going forward if this just isn't? I want it to be successful, I'm just.
Before you answer, would the city clerk note in the log that Councilmember Heredia had to leave, but we still have a quorum? Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Councilmember Taylor, I don't necessarily think not implementing this change is the right answer if it's not working. It's more PR, and it's more outreach, and it's more signage in the parks, and it's more convincing neighborhoods that they need to be active and making sure their park is safe.
Yeah.
Because it's not an enforcement issue as much as it is helping people understand that this is a harmful behavior and isn't okay.
Love it. Okay. And then lastly, sidewalks. Are there going to be split? I'm thinking about when I walk on the park sidewalk, are we splitting the lanes? Are we widening them? I was thinking about a bunch of e-bikes and cyclists with pedestrians jog. I jog or walk. How will that traffic process work? Have you thought through that?
Councilmember Taylor, we are not intending to change the structure of the sidewalks.
Okay.
You can be on the grass next to a paved area, especially if you need to go around somebody. That's not a disallowed thing. It's ripping up the turf and taking out sprinkler heads that's the problem.
Super. Thank you for answering all of my questions.
One quick clarification. So if you have an e-bike and you've modified it to go over 28 miles an hour, even though it's classified as an e-bike, once it reaches 28 miles an hour, it'd be a motor-driven cycle, which would require all the requirements. Because there's videos and ways that people are modifying these e-bikes that the manufacturer says max speed is 28 miles an hour, but after modifications, if it goes faster than 28 miles an hour, it would fall in the motor-driven cycle that then would require title, registration, everything that a motorcycle would.
So at that point, it falls under ARS
Yes.
in the traffic.
Yes, for a motorcycle.
Vice Mayor, if I may, and that's a glitch that actually we saw in the current draft of the ordinance that's in Legistar, just so you know, and we'll change it this afternoon, that the Class 3, right now, we'd added the phrase 28 miles or greater, but I think we're going to delete the or greater because once it gets over 28, just as you explained, and that's consistent with state statute. And so we're going to delete the or greater, so you'll see that change, along with what we're also going to just reference the state statute for some of the definitions that we tie back. Many of these definitions really just come back from the state statute, so we're going to tie that back. So you'll see that change here this afternoon in Legistar.
And Lieutenant, I'm glad you brought that up because that one of the questions I had was how are we going to be able to determine a class 1, 2, or 3? Eastmark has a group, Eastmark Safe Streets. Melissa Leon is on the Transportation Advisory Board, and she runs that. She's done a fantastic job. She had a e-bike person come and talk about training and kids of what e-bikes are, and it was an enlightening. One of the concerns I have is there's almost no way to visibly tell if it's a 1 or a 2 or a 3. And one thing that he did was he took an e-bike and he showed how the one with a throttle, so that's a 2, then he disconnected the throttle, now it's a 1. And you put it back together, it's back to a 2, and then the kids with the videos, as you mentioned, can get in and hack the code and go over 28 miles an hour. Now it's not even just a 3, it's potentially a motorcycle. And this is concerning because it makes creating an ordinance and enforcement extraordinarily difficult, right? The other thing specific to this, actually, would you bring up slide 4 while I'm speaking? I worry that 5 miles, was it 5 miles an hour for the e-bike? I'm not sure you can ride an e-bike at 5 miles an hour. Have we looked at the stability of riding a bike? Every kid that starts out riding a bike and they go too slow and they start to wobble and they fall off. My concern is that an e-bike with the added weight and all that 5 miles an hour might be an unreasonable speed given the ability to ride it at that speed. So I would ask that we kind of take a look at the data, if that's even possible. And 2, do we have actual specific data that shows braking distances between a regular bicycle pedaled bike and an e-bike? This isn't the slide I was hoping for.
I think you
There
can
it is.
disengage, so 5 miles would be, sorry.
No,
It would be
you're
just
right.
pedaling,
You're
right?
actually kind of right. Maybe where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
I hate to give credit to Tempe for anything, but I'm going to get a call from their mayor now. The stipulation of the motor disengaged is interesting because if you disengage the motor, then essentially it's just a pedal bike.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what we look at is to emulate some other city I won't mention again about you can ride your bike, but it has to be disengaged, at least in the parks. I think the multi-use paths, you should be able to engage it.
Vice Mayor, if I may, because we talked about this with the Parks Board, and the concern with only allowing Class 1, for example, with pedal assist and not Class 2, are the types of bikes that older folks have.
You mean the ones over 50?
The Class 2s, a lot of times are beach cruisers. Those tend to be older riders, and so having just a throttle operation on a bike that has pedal function, we don't want to not allow that. And so we're trying to be inclusive and recognizing the types of bikes that are used by different populations that are in the park
how did
system.
that city that shall not be named get past that? Or is this an issue that they're addressing? Tempe.
Look at their demographics.
Well, fair, yeah,
So
but they have
this was in recognition of Parks Board being concerned that we would not allow folks that have more mobility limitations use their bikes in the parks because of the types of bikes that tend to be Class 2.
All right. Once again, I mean, if this is something we end up adopting, it's not static. We can also make some changes to it. Has this been through the Transportation Advisory Board as well?
The idea of it was presented to Transportation Advisory Board. In
Yes,
September.
I can speak to that. And Lieutenant Stokes gave a presentation in September to the Transportation Advisory Board, specifically talking about e-bikes and what's legal and outreach and education and enforcement.
So they've been engaged, and I know the Park Board has.
So, and I think, the section that's with transportation on the shared use paths, we're not changing the speed limit. The speed limit's already there. We're just including now that type 1 and type 2 can be on those facilities.
So are you saying there are some bikes that you cannot disengage the assist?
Councilmember Goforth, a Class 2 doesn't require pedals to have motor assistance. Because the throttle can operate it without pedaling. That's what I mean about.
Oh, I know, but you can, I'm saying I want you to pedal and not engage the motor.
Right, and the Parks Board was specifically asking that we allow people who have those Class 2 bikes operate in the parks.
You can pedal.
Because
That's what I'm saying, right?
it's a mobility concern with certain groups, that they're more likely to have those class twos because they have trouble pedaling and they can operate it with just a throttle.
Like a pedal assist, I'm tired, I just need to use
Yeah,
the throttle.
my
right?
bike does both, but what I'm saying is, we could just require, as Tempe, we could just require them to pedal, but their concern is for the folks that don't pedal at all.
Correct.
Interesting, yeah.
So it's kind of like a concern for discrimination against the older folks or
Correct.
people that just may have a disability that does not allow them to continue going
That
for
is
a
the
long
concern.
time.
That is the concern.
That's interesting, because I would have done the opposite. I would have said, if you want to come into the park, you have to pedal, like a normal bike.
Yeah,
That
to-
lowers the risk. Otherwise, you stay on the path or the street, if you're just going to be essentially a motorcycle. You're not really a bike if you're not pedaling, right?
I have a question that's actually really
I don't
important.
know. That's-
Do we have a record of incidences that you guys have looked at where people have run into each other or run into people on e-bikes in parks? Like, have we actually had the paramedics called because somebody got into an accident while they were riding?
Councilmember, we could get into a records management system and do queries on call types, certainly dispatch location, park addresses, but that would be more of an analytics.
Okay, you don't have that, okay. I was just thinking of it from a safety perspective, if that's something that frequently is happening, then that would be a different viewpoint on all of this.
Just to clarify also, when a e-bike reaches 28 miles an hour and it's classified as a motor-driven cycle or a motorcycle, all those are covered under state law currently, not within they might also be covered in the city code, but once it reaches a motorcycle, it's covered under all the existing laws in ARS.
Over 28 miles an hour.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a really important component of the education piece. Is I really feel that in some instances, parents don't know what they're buying. They want an e-bike, fine, and then they end up buying basically a motorcycle. I think I've seen one at a hardware store not too far from me. And it's just, it's got to be an e-bike because it has a battery. It doesn't have an actual motor, and that just isn't the case. And so I think a lot of parents are going to go, oh, I'm glad we had this conversation, and especially since Christmas is coming up, or maybe it's past. I don't know. It's been a long meeting. So trying to lighten it up. All right, I think for me, the only thing left is a little bit of research before the weekend hits on the 5 mile an hour thing, whether that's even feasible to ride a bike at that speed. And in the future, I might want to have more conversations about the disconnect item. Is there any other questions, comments, or concerns from council remaining at this point?
I just want to confirm, one of the reasons that we're seeing this is because we already had people going into our parks on e-bikes, on e-scooters, whether it's allowed or not, they are using it for that sole purpose, to go through our.
Councilmember Taylor, they are.
Thank you, okay.
Okay. Then we'll probably have a little bit more discussion in the council meeting on Monday because we were missing 2 council members, so they're, and the mayor included. So they might have some questions as well. So. Hearing no other issues, thank you so much. We'll move on to item 3, which is acknowledge the receipt of minutes of various boards and committees. Do I have a motion? Motion and a second as recorded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any no nays? Carries unanimously. Current events or, current events or conferences attended. Anyone? No. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have anything?
Nothing in addition to your.
Well, I'm going to move on to that. Which one?
Did we already talk about the library on Monday?
Oh, yeah, I'm like, we did essentially.
No, actually, I was, the next item is scheduling of meetings. Mark, what do we have coming up?
Why don't you go ahead and talk about it, if you want? I don't want to steal the glory.
No, I was going to pass it off, but this Saturday, we will have the grand opening of Gateway Library. That starts at 10 a.m. and runs to 2 p.m. I do recommend, if you're still watching, to show up early. We do expect a lot of folks to show, and parking is fairly limited, so just know that. And if you can walk, that'd be great for those who are living in the living there. It will also be the first of the new farmers markets that will be there, and I am told, I believe 70% of the items there will be food or vegetable kind of thing. So this is going to be great. It's going to be a farmers market. A lot of events going on, so I look forward to seeing everybody there.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. We don't get to do this very often, so we're excited to do that. Well, very often as in every 30 years. So first new branch library in 30 years, so it's an exciting.
So you have to be over 50 to remember.
Well, we won't go to the e-bike conversation on what bike you ride there. Again, Vice Mayor, Council, just a reminder, a special council meeting will begin on Monday, December 8th at 3:30. The regular study session and council meeting will begin at 5:15. And then after that meeting on December 8th, council will go on winter break. So as we head into the holiday season, we wish you all and your families a very happy holiday. And a reminder that Merry Main Street's going on, so we invite everybody to come down and take part in the activities that are happening, and from the ice skating to the tree and Santa visits and everything else. So.
Yeah, all the events are on downtownmesa.com, or you can catch it on social. So many events, but Saturday there will be the Mesa Book Festival right by the tree. Also, there's a Jingle Bars Crawl with festive drinks. So just to kick off those events.
Great. Excellent.
Sorry, I do have one as well. This Saturday at Falcon Field Airport from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. is Cockpit Close-Up, and there will be Fire Station 208's aircraft rescue and firefighting truck, and as well as the Commemorative Air Force Museum's F-16. So that's kind of exciting. Santa will be flying into the museum. That takes tickets, but that's exciting, at 11 a.m. Be there. Or be square.
Excellent.
I just wanted to promote really quick a local Mesa D2 business that I went to go visit. It's called Wire Masters. They make wiring harnesses for various Department of Defense contracts and Boeing and the Apache helicopters. And I went and visited them yesterday and took a tour of the facility, got to see where the manufacturing happens. They have decided to stay planted here in Mesa because of those peripheral contracts that they can take with those big manufacturers. Their headquarters is in Tennessee, so they're kind of covering the West Coast here in Arizona and the East Coast in Tennessee, but they also ship out of Mesa globally, to Germany and to France and other locations. So that was really cool that I got to see kind of, the inner workings of this incredible business that their goal, I think they're going to reach it within 5 years, is to be a $500 million a year or more business right here in D2. So I was pretty excited about that. Just wanted to share.
Excellent. And then when they expand, they can come to D6.
Oh, okay. We'll talk, we'll share.
Anything else for the better of the order? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.